Chapter 1430. The next day before dawn, a loud and clear bell rang in the school dormitory. Following that, Instructor Luo's deep voice echoed, "Students from various academies, I'll give you 2 incenses time to gather at the training grounds with the fastest speed. Whoever is in last place, everyone from the last place's academy is forbidden from eating lunch." Yesterday, other than Heavenly Academy students, the other academy students were totally tortured to death by these 4 instructors. All of them were exhausted, and when they returned to the dormitory, they collapsed onto the bed to rest, not even able to eat a single mouthful of food. When they woke up, yesterday's exhaustion and the feeling of an empty stomach instantly attacked them. The last place couldn't eat lunch? Then where would they have the energy to train? Immediately, the students of the various academies scrambled to their feet, washed up, and put on their clothes. When the various academies students rushed to the training grounds with sleepy eyes and disheveled clothes, they saw a team running laps around the training grounds. Green and white uniform, simple and elegant. This was Heavenly Academy's uniform. That team was Devil Class. When Yiqing Luo led the Devil Class's students over, everyone saw the team's faces clearly. They were indeed Devil Class's students. You all. Nan Tao Academy's students pointed at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. All of them had gone through a lot of hardships before they crawled out of bed and sped over here. Devil Class's students had actually arrived long ago, and the entire class was running laps together. Hadn't they enjoyed enough of yesterday's 10 laps running? Devil Class's students have the habit of morning exercise. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. Various academies. Some of them also had the habit of morning exercise, but after yesterday's torture, the muscles on their bodies had tightened and had yet to recover. And today, Master Gui would definitely give new instructions, and it would be even more tiring than yesterday's training. Was it really a good idea for Devil Class to waste all their energy on morning exercise now? Just as they were talking, suddenly a red-crowned crane's cry was heard from the horizon. It was sharp and melodious, cutting through the sky as it flew across the sky. They saw a huge red-crowned crane approaching from afar with extreme speed. That red-crowned crane had a beautiful and exquisite arc on its broad wings. As it flapped its fan, it carried a powerful aura. The surrounding air also seemed to circulate along with the flapping of the crane's wings. The white feathers were as pure and holy as snow, as if they were coated with a layer of multicolored light. What a noble and matchless red-crowned crane, demonic beast. Everyone from the various academies had their eyes on the crane. When the immortal crane neared, everyone was shocked to discover something. There were 2 figures standing on the crane. A noble demon dressed in a moon-white brocade robe with a jade belt. One of them was dressed in black and had a cold look on his face. Ghost Martial Master, Instructor Zhou. The students immediately stood up straight and greeted the crane respectfully. Zhou Mo's gaze swept across the crowd and finally fell onto Yiqing Luo. On the foreheads of the Devil Class's students, there was a thin layer of perspiration. He immediately understood. He couldn't help but gave a low laugh as he used his hand to nudge Gui Wu beside him. As he teased, "Looks like you weren't ruthless enough yesterday. Look at the Devil Class's students. They can even bring their own classmates to run 2 laps and above." Gui Wu shot a cold glance at him as his lips tugged coldly. Chapter 1431. One after another, the students from the various academies rushed over. Zi Qianqian was also late. Looking at her exquisite makeup and neat clothes, it was obvious that she spent most of her time on dressing up. At the same time, when the last stick of incense burned out, the bell rang. Both Gui Wu and Zhou Mo were still standing on the back of the red-crowned crane, overlooking the students below. Suddenly, the corner of their eyes fixed on a certain place. Not far from the training ground, a petite figure was moving, as if trying to avoid the sight of others and quietly blend into the crowd of students. However, that petite figure had yet to get close to one of the student teams. A gust of wind swept down and landed beside the figure's feet. The figure seemed to be startled. She shrank back a few steps and fell to the ground. Su Xiaolian. The students from the Heavenly Academy exclaimed when they saw that person. That figure was Su Xiaolian. Her face was pale as she fell to the ground, shivering. Hearing someone calling out her name, Su Xiaolian looked at the Heavenly Academy in a daze. It's the people from the Heavenly Academy. Then, the students from the Heavenly Academy are the last students to arrive at the training ground today. The ones who are banned from lunch are the Heavenly Academy. The students from the various academies suddenly screamed. One by one they cheered. They were so hungry that their chests were sticking to their backs. They were worried that they would be the last student to arrive at the training ground, causing the entire academy to starve along with them. If they really became the culprit, the academy would definitely target them. Now it was confirmed that the last student to arrive at the training ground was Su Xiaolian from the Heavenly Academy. Their hearts that were hanging in suspense could finally be put down. Su Xiaolian heard the voices from the various academies. Her petite body shrank back in fear. She didn't even have the courage to look up at her own class. That look made many of the male students from the Heavenly Academy feel a little unbearable. Su Xiaolian, what are you doing? Why can you still come to the training ground? Weren't you expelled from the Heavenly Academy? You're not even a student of our Heavenly Academy. This doesn't count. She doesn't count. The students from the Heavenly Academy were suddenly anxious. This Su Xiaolian, on the way from the Western continent to the Southern continent, he kept causing trouble for everyone, and even caused the Heavenly Academy to lose face in front of other academies. On the other hand, Su Xiaolian was completely unaware of this. Now, they were even forbidden from having lunch. No matter how well they usually played together, the students of Intermediate Profound Class 2 reprimanded Su Xiaolian without hesitation for their own benefit. He did not even acknowledge that she belonged to the Heavenly Academy. Shut up! Instructor Ho's frozen face seemed to be covered with frost. He glanced coldly at the students from the Heavenly Academy. The Heavenly Academy is particular about teamwork and loyalty. Since Su Xiaolian is the last student to arrive at the training ground, then she shall obey the rules and be prohibited from having lunch. Since the instructor had spoken, the students of the Heavenly Academy did not dare to refute. Gui Wu stood on the back of the red-crowned crane as he frowned and stared at the silent Yi Qing Luo for some time before nodding his head lightly. It would be best if Heavenly Instructor is willing to follow the rules. In other words, the ban on lunch in the Heavenly Academy had become a foregone conclusion. Chapter 1432. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her piercing gaze stared deeply at Zi Qianqian's direction. She noticed it. Su Xiaolian, who seemed to be filled with guilt, timid and fearful, raised her eyes to meet Zi Qianqian's gaze. Yi Qing Luo also knew clearly. Su Xiaolian had intentionally become the last to arrive at the training ground, and this deliberate action must have been under Zi Qianqian's orders. This knowledge made Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh out loud. Zi Qianqian's jealousy had turned Zi Qianqian from the high and mighty, pure and holy goddess into the current goddess. Women, indeed easy to be controlled by their own emotions. In order to make the devil class ban lunch collectively, to come up with such a rotten idea, and also slightly tipsy, devil class could not eat lunch. Could it be that they could eat it? One must know they were representing the Heavenly Academy. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue. Facing Zi Qianqian, whose IQ had plummeted, she didn't even have the interest to tease her. Under the wailing of the Heavenly Academy, Gui Wu and Zhou Emo leapt down from the crane and stood on the main stage. Zhou Emo clapped his hands, for instructors were seen walking to the front of the main stage. Each of them took out a space bag. Thump, thump, thump! Several heavy objects landed on the ground. Crackling and rattling reverberated throughout the entire training ground. Then, items that looked like golden silk soft armor poured out of the interspatial pocket one after another. Those soft armors looked extremely light and thin, but from the sound of the soft armors landing on the ground, it made the students from various academies' hearts beat like drums. Inexplicably, there was a kind of ominous premonition. Here are specially made soft armors. One soft armor weighs about 70 caddies. Each of you, come here to receive a soft armor. I'll give you 2 incenses time to change into the soft armor and report to me. Several instructors spoke in a deep voice. The students' eyes widened. 70 caddies soft armor? Can we still walk with 70 caddies of soft armor? This isn't training. This is cruel torture. The students wanted to cry, but had no tears. However, the Devil class students had already taken the lead to receive their own soft armor. There were even a few students who requested for 2 soft armors. The student's expression. His heart was on the brink of collapse. Devil class students, are you sure you're not joking? Were they sure they could wear 2 sets of soft armor? One piece weighed 70 gene. 2 freaking pieces weighed 140 kilograms. Could they still play happily? Can we still happily train together? If these students knew, other than these soft armors, Devil class students were also wearing gravity belts on their bodies. The heaviest of them weighed at least 25 gene, plus the weight of the soft armor. Each of them carried at least 100 kilograms of weight, no matter how unhappy the students were. In the end, he still obediently stepped forward and received his soft armor. In just a moment, the students from the various academies, who had changed into soft armor and stood on the training ground again, were all pale, as if they were facing a great enemy. Some of them even felt their legs go weak and were on the verge of collapsing when they walked. From now on, before the end of the training, none of you are allowed to take off your soft armor. Gue Wu's ice-cold voice resounded throughout the training grounds. His sharp eyes swept across, and a cold chill caused those students who were still wailing in pain to stop their voices. Chapter 1433. Yes. Awed by Gue Wu's imposing aura, all the students responded in unison. Gue Wu retracted his gaze and continued, "Then today we shall officially start our training. Now all the students will line up and follow the instructors towards the Blazing Flame Nest to carry out the outdoor training." Blazing Flame Nest? These 4 words made Yi Qing Luo's brows jump abruptly. This place. It was the place where the Heavenly Dean and the Dark Forces had an agreement to offer the students' souls to the King of Darkness. Could it be that the Heavenly Dean had already started to take action? Or perhaps this Gue Wu was also someone from the Dark Forces? Blazing Flame Nest? Master Gue Wu, we can't go there for the time being. That's right. The Blazing Flame Nest has been very strange recently. Our families have been reminding us not to go near it. I heard that there had been some changes in the Blazing Flame Nest recently, and the Imperial Tutor had prophesied that there would be a divine object descending into the world in the Blazing Flame Nest, causing batches after batches of forces to enter the Blazing Flame Nest. But none of them had returned alive. When the students heard about the location of the Blazing Flame Nest, their faces instantly turned pale. Recently, there were rumors about the Blazing Flame Nest flying around. Gue Wu actually wanted to lead everyone towards the Blazing Flame Nest, although the students didn't want to defy Gue Wu's orders. But the minute they recalled the rumors in the Blazing Flame Nest, they were extremely terrified. Gue Wu frowned, not understanding what the students meant by the rumors. He looked towards Zhou Mo. Zhou Mo shrugged his shoulders as he stood out to smooth things over. Our training will only be at the periphery of the Blazing Flame Nest and will not enter the inner part of the Blazing Flame Nest. whereas at the periphery, the various elders from the headquarters have set up an enchantment to protect the students' safety. As long as the students follow the rules and don't fall behind, then there absolutely won't be any danger. Zomo's words made those students who were clamoring to change the location to quieten down. Blazing Flame Nest. Will there be a problem? Long Yunjan also heard from Yiqing Luo that the dark forces were preparing to lure the students into the Blazing Flame Nest. Hearing this news, Long Yunjan was slightly stunned. We still have to make a trip there. If there's any accident, immediately bring our brothers and evacuate. Yiqing Luo lowered her voice. It's much safer to enter the Blazing Flame Nest with Yunjan. In the end, the location of the field training was decided to be the outer area of the fire nest. Gui Wu and the 5 drill instructors were present, as well as the various elders from the headquarters, who had set up a barrier to protect them. The students gradually let down their guard. The main reason was because they really had no other energy to think about other things. With the 70 kilograms soft armor on his body, he could still walk a few steps. But after the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, he began to struggle to move and began to pant. This was especially so for Zi Qianqian. Her meticulous makeup was soaked in sweat, and her entire face was covered in rouge. Many of the female students had only put on some light makeup due to time constraints, so they were not as disheveled as Zi Qianqian. They hadn't even walked a quarter of the way, and there were already students complaining incessantly. The one who suffered the most was the students of the devil class, walked in high spirits, their faces calm, totally unable to tell that they were wearing a 70 kilograms soft armor. Chapter 1434. Among them, there were devil class students who were wearing 2 sets of soft armor. Furthermore, and there were 2 female students who were wearing 2 sets of soft armor. These 2 girls didn't even crease their brows, no different from usual. The various academy students. Damn it. Were they still human? Were they all a bunch of freaking perverts? The students' pride had suffered a huge blow. Gui Wu and the 5 instructors didn't ride on that red-crowned crane, nor did they ride on horses. Instead, they walked, leading the way at the front. The group, close to 2,000 over people, majestically headed towards the direction of the Blazing Flame Nest. It was so powerful that basically everyone in Valley Wind City knew about it, and everyone knew about it. Momentarily, numerous commoners started to flock over. Gui Wu and the accompanying elders from the main courtyard didn't obstruct them. Surrounded by a group of enthusiastic commoners, he walked with difficulty. Yiqing Luo was still bewildered. Wasn't Gui Wu a mysterious figure who couldn't be more mysterious? Appearing in front of everyone's line of sight in such a grand manner. Wasn't he afraid that his mysterious persona would collapse? The truth had proven that Yiqing Luo's bewilderment was unnecessary worry, because even if Gui Wu walked in the middle of the group in a grand manner, no one would believe that the young man who had that invincible youth, that young man's face, would be the famous Gui Wu master in Nirvana realm. Because of his young age, no matter how handsome Gui Wu and Zoemo were, walking at the front. But it still didn't attract much attention from the commoners. Yiqing Luo's forehead was filled with black lines when she saw this. All right, previously she also couldn't believe that Gui Wu master would be someone who had a show to face. The surrounding commoners started to crowd more and more. Originally, these commoners wanted to see the valiant youngsters who represented Nirvana realm's Flower of Hope, as well as the rumored Gui Wu master. But the reality made them exceptionally disappointed. Close to 2,000 over students were all sweating profusely, staggering as they walked. Were these still the youngsters who represented the Flower of Hope? Even an ordinary walk seemed to be throwing away half of one's life. Could it be that these people who cultivated Xian Qi moved their Xian Qi and relied on flying to get by? Finally, the gazes of all the commoners landed on the 2 youths and 4 middle-aged men who were walking at the very front. Their steps were light and quick, and they were neatly lined up with the Devil class students. Which academy is that student from? There are so many students in the academy, but the only one who is normal is that academy student. Let's send our children to that academy to study. That's the uniform of the Heavenly Academy. Someone recognized the uniform worn by the Devil class students. Heavenly Academy. The first academy. This is the academy that has been named the best academy for many years. This is indeed the first academy. Compared to the other academies, I seem to understand why the Heavenly Academy is so strict in enrollment. The discussions of the commoners were extremely ear-piercing to the ears of the students. Their faces were red, and they were extremely embarrassed. He tried his best to walk in a normal posture. However, the weight on their bodies was getting heavier and heavier. They were grumbling in their hearts, wondering if this Gui Wu master and the 4 instructors were doing this on purpose. There was obviously a small path from the main academy's training grounds to the blazing flame nest, which could be taken as a shortcut. But Gui Wu master led the way, towards the main path, directly towards the direction of the city gate. Not only did it extend the route. Chapter 1435. Could it be that Gui Wu was intentionally trying to ruin the reputations of the various academies? Or Gui Wu had actually been bribed by the Heavenly Academy? Were they intentionally helping the Heavenly Academy to build up their reputation? In fact, the weighted soft armor on the Heavenly Academy was fake. The students from the various academies were all immersed in their thoughts. Just at this moment, they heard another round of discussion coming from the crowd. Look, the group at the back are also Heavenly Academy students. What's wrong with these students? Why do they all look so sickly? Heavenly Academy students. Why do they also look so sickly? The First Academy's students can't even walk properly? That's right. I heard that the students from the Heavenly Academy who are participating in the exchange meet are selected from several classes. Among them, the Devil class, which has the reputation of Heavenly Academy's Waste Class 1, is also here. Waste Class 1? That is to say, those students at the back are actually the Waste Class 1 students. They must be the Waste Class 1 students. I also heard that the Heavenly Academy had brought 2 students from the class of gods, and one of them is the number 1 beauty of the Heavenly Academy, Zi Qianchan. Look at the Heavenly Academy team in front, that female student leading them. Isn't she devastatingly beautiful? Then it must be Zi Qianchan. Tiske. The exchange meet is such a sacred event. Why must the Heavenly Academy bring along such a waste team? It's such a disgrace to the Heavenly Academy. The surrounding crowd looked at Gui Wu's group of students as they discussed excitedly. They were just short of rushing up to Yi Qing Luo and the rest and asking them personally. Zi Qianchan and the rest's expressions turned uglier by the minute. These foolish commoners of the South Waves continent, they actually dared to call them the trash class, the students of the Devil class. But no matter how much resentment they had in their hearts, Zi Qianchan and the rest were stunned, and none of them opened their mouths to refute the commoners' discussions. They were recognized as students of the Devil class. The commoners treated Yi Qing Luo as Zi Qianchan. Instead, they chose to tacitly agree, at least in the eyes of outsiders. They, the students of the class of gods, the elite students of the Heavenly Academy, had finally preserved their reputation. Zi Qianchan's number 1 beauty reputation had at least been preserved. The students from the other major academies had expended all their energy on walking with the weights. He didn't have the leisure nor the energy to speak up for the Devil class, especially when he saw Yi Qing Luo and the others with a relaxed expression, following behind Master Ghost Marshal with an extremely satisfied look. The students had even less thoughts of helping the Devil class. At this moment, they were extremely vexed. It was very clear. To cultivate Xian Qi, one should also have a strong physique. But they insisted that training their physical bodies was a waste of time. Instead, he spent a lot of time on how to raise his profound level. The students of the various academies suddenly recalled some time ago. During the interclass competition in the Heavenly Academy, the students of the Devil class were collectively chased by low-level magical beasts, almost circling the entire mountain behind the dormitory for more than 10 rounds. At first, they only treated this news as a joke. Once he said it, he would be happy and it would be over. However, only now did they realize how foolish their thoughts were back then. So, the students of Devil class had long been training their bodies. Suddenly, all kinds of praise for the students of the Heavenly Academy's class of gods and the elite students behind them were in full swing. Chapter 1436. A voice stirred up thousands of waves. The surrounding commoners were all excited. Not Zi Qianshan? Isn't that Heavenly Academy student? I remember her. Previously at Ling Wang's tomb. I've met her once. That person cried out agitatedly. I'm absolutely not mistaken. She is Yi Qing Luo. She's the one who obtained the god relic and contracted with the White Tiger Sacred Beast and Divine Dragon, the World Mercenary Group's vice group leader. Yi Qing Luo. That was Yi Qing Luo. That person's words made the surrounding commoners' eyes widen as they stared straight at Yi Qing Luo. That was Yi Qing Luo. Regarding Yi Qing Luo's deeds, although it all happened in the West Continent, but the people in the South Continent had more or less heard about it. Yi Qing Luo was not only the vice group leader of the World Mercenary Group, she was also a student of Heavenly Academy's Devil class. Devil class, which was the Waste Class 1, which they were talking about. As for Yi Qing Luo, she was walking among those handsome-looking, young, and energetic students, which meant to say, what they had guessed earlier, was that the class of gods and the elite students of Heavenly Academy were actually students of Devil class, whereas the students who they thought were Waste Class 1 were those elite students. The surrounding commoners' voices instantly quietened down. Only the sounds of people drawing in breaths could be heard faintly. Following that, the South Continent students started to boast about Devil class students in various ways. All of them were extremely interested in this class, which was obviously labeled as Waste Class, but had become this year's black horse, which had charged out of everyone's eyes. So much so that the class of gods and those elite students were almost trampled underfoot by those commoners. Zi Qianshan and the rest's expressions were filled with gloomy clouds. Looking at Devil class students, they seemed as though they couldn't hear the surrounding commoners' boasting and frenzied shouts. All of them had a calm and unperturbed expression as they walked forward. This look in Zi Qianshan and the rest's eyes, that was a blatant mockery, physical exhaustion, the surrounding commoners' ridicule, and the contempt from Devil class students. The Heavenly Academy students were feeling more and more exhausted. When they reached Valley Wind City's city gates, Gui Wu suddenly stopped. He turned his head, his cold gaze sweeping across the rows of students behind him. The expression on his face did not change in the slightest, and his voice was cold and emotionless. Once you leave this city gate, don't even think about retreating. If you feel that you can't hold on, you can choose to leave now. Don't waste our time. Quit? Thinking back to the day before, those students who didn't complete 10 laps were all forcefully sent back to the academy and disqualified from participating in the exchange. It was easy to imagine what would happen to those students when they returned to the academy. He would definitely become the laughingstock of the academy. Thinking of this, the students clenched their teeth. No matter what, they refused to say the words of giving up at this time. The following training will be even more brutal than yesterday and today. The weight-bearing software on your bodies will also continuously increase the weight. Furthermore, in the next few days, don't even think about having a good meal or drinking water to your heart's content. It is very likely that he will be hungry and thirsty for an entire day. Instructor Luo's majestic voice sounded. As soon as these words came out, the hearts of the students who had vowed that they would never back out suddenly trembled. Obviously, they were somewhat shaken. They were very clear. Chapter 1437. Now, based on yesterday's training, as well as today's weight-bearing soft armor, weigh your own stamina and ability to see if you are able to last through the next 5 days of special training. Instructor Ren's voice was very calm. Among the 5 instructors, Instructor Ren seemed to be the easiest to talk to. Why are you talking so much nonsense with them? Suddenly, Instructor Lee, who had been silent for a long time, could no longer tolerate it as he pushed Instructor Ren aside. You bunch of trash, if you think it's tiring. Then get lost from our special training team. Stop wasting time. Following that, he pointed towards those 2,000 students. If you give up now, you can do whatever you want in the future. You don't need to carry weights and don't need to starve. These few instructors' words seemed to be tempting those students, and quite a number of students were indeed bewitched. The 70-kilogram weight-bearing soft armor was already taking away half of their lives. If it continued to increase in weight, wouldn't it take away their entire lives? Even if the academy's elders or instructors tried their best to dissuade them. There were also close to 300 over students who chose to quit after the time it took to burn a stick of incense. A group of close to 2,000 students was left with 1,500 over students. Gue Wu didn't stay any longer, leading the 1,500 over students. He headed straight towards the direction of the Blazing Flame Lair. The Blazing Flame Lair was located in the most mysterious depths of the South Continent's border. It was similar to the cold, demonic beasts in the West Continent. It was a place for various large mercenary groups or various academy students to complete missions or capture demonic beasts. This was considered as a sacred place in the South Continent. Setting off from Valley Wind City, it took several hours of journey. Along the way, Yi Qing Luo acutely discovered that there were extremely messy and complicated footprints on the ground. It seemed as though many people had passed by this place. Yi Qing Luo had heard of that rumor regarding the Blazing Flame Lair. It was said that the imperial tutor of the South Continent had prophesied that there would be a divine object descending into the Blazing Flame Lair. This led to various powerhouses sending people to snatch it. However, none of them survived. These footprints were probably from those cultivators from various powerhouses who entered the Blazing Flame Lair. Until they reached the Blazing Flame Lair, Yi Qing Luo didn't see a single person passing by. Blazing Flame Lair was indeed worthy of its name. Following Gue Wu and the other instructors standing at the entrance of the lair, they could feel an extremely intense heat wave surging towards them. The heat waves made the students feel extremely hot. The sweat on his body evaporated by the heat. He felt increasingly stuffy. The students of the Devil class were all feeling uncomfortable from the heat wave. Gue Wu looked at the entrance of the Blazing Flame Lair before turning to look at the students behind him, who were still approaching them one by one. He calmly said, "All students will rest here for 2 hours. Once the head institute's elder has set up a barrier in the safe zone, we will all enter the flame, nest together." He heard that he could rest. The students who had staggered over fell to the ground on their butts. At this moment, how could he care about his image? Why would he care about the differences between men and women? They just wanted to fall to the ground and never get up again. Zi Qianshan and the others followed behind the crowd, panting heavily as they rushed over. Their uniforms had long been soaked in sweat, and even their hair was wet and stuck to their skin. That feeling was indescribably uncomfortable. The students who came later saw the students lying on the ground and knew that it was time to rest. Zi Qianshan did not care about her image as the number one beauty. Chapter 1438. After rushing for several hours, she was still wearing the weighted soft armor, and outside the blazing cavern, she was surrounded by the surging heat. Her throat was extremely dry. One by one, the students took out the water pearl and started gulping down water. Gue Wu and Zhou Emo stood at the entrance of the blazing cavern, paying attention to the enchantment which the elders had set up while sizing up those students. Gui Wu frowned tightly as his gaze fell on Yi Qing Luo for some time. Following that, he looked towards the direction of Zi Qianqian and the rest. His brows creased even tighter. Devil Class's students, after arriving at the entrance of the blazing cavern, didn't immediately rest. Instead, they observed the surrounding environment acutely. After confirming the surrounding environment, they gathered together and took out the water pearl. Each of them drank a few mouthfuls to soothe the burning sensation in their throats before they stopped and closed their eyes to rest. And those elite students who were praised by Heavenly Dean and Elder Yunxiang. But after arriving at the entrance, they had no image at all. From yesterday's 10 laps of running, and the battle with the 4 instructors, and from today's situation of carrying heavy weights and walking for half a day, the aptitude of Devil Class's students was obviously much higher than the so-called class of gods by many times. Are you curious? Zhou Emo hooked his arm over Gui Wu's shoulder as his phoenix eyes rose slightly. Devil Class in Heavenly Academy had always been treated as a non-existent waste class. It was rumored that for 2 to 3 years, no teachers had been sent to teach in Devil Class. Gui Wu frowned as he glanced sideways at him. Only Yi Qing Luo, this young lady, managed to pass the admission assessment in half an hour's time. In the end, she probably offended someone in the academy and was allocated to Devil Class. That's when Devil Class gradually started to be remembered again. Zhou Emo specially went to investigate on Yi Qing Luo's information. This information could be easily found out in Heavenly Academy just by casually inquiring about it. Gui Wu narrowed his sinister eyes. The rise of Devil Class was absolutely not just because of Yi Qing Luo's arrival. Yi Qing Luo had only entered Heavenly Academy for a few months, not even half a year. In a short span of a few months, it was impossible to train that batch of waste to what they were now. To have this kind of tacit understanding, this kind of stamina, this kind of ability, it was absolutely not something that could be trained successfully in a day or night. At the very least, he had trained for 2 to 3 years. Such a class was actually treated as trash for so many years. Zhou Emo immediately continued. That old man Guiyu also went to the Devil Class because of Yi Qing Luo and also went to teach there. All this while the Devil Class had never had a teacher teaching? Then what's the point of these students staying in the Heavenly Academy? What was the Heavenly Academy up to? Wait a minute, Gui Wu frowned. You mean Guiyu? Zhou Emo raised his eyebrows. Yes, that old man Guiyu also fell in love with Yi Qing Luo, and because of her words, he accepted her brother as his disciple. Accepting a disciple? Gui Wu narrowed his eyes with interest. This little girl, he really wasn't simple. There was something about her that people couldn't fathom. Even the lunatic old man Guiyu was subdued by her. This special training is getting interesting. At this moment, the 4 drill instructors who were standing at the side and looking at the students were also discussing in low voices. What do you guys think of that lass from Devil Class? After being an instructor for so many years, this is the first time I've seen such an energetic student. Chapter 1439. Instructor Ren rationally opened his mouth. This batch of students is indeed the most outstanding students we've seen in the many years we've been in this position. Instructor Luo hooked his arm around Instructor Ren's shoulder. I'd like to have a one-on-one battle with that lass. Fighting with you guys isn't as satisfying as fighting with her. It's rare to see you all praising a student together. Instructor Fang's gaze swept past Yi Qing Luo, who had her eyes closed. Not only are you all interested in that female student, Master Gui Wu and young Master Emo also seem to be interested in her. The few instructors' gazes immediately shifted onto Zhou Emo and Gui Wu. Qing Luo, the training instructors have been looking at you. Yan Xiao leaned her head over and whispered into Yi Qing Luo's ear. Amen. Yi Qing Luo responded indifferently. The 4 of them didn't conceal their gazes at all. Even if she didn't turn back, she could feel that the 4 of them were staring at her. Amen. and Gui Wu and Zhou Emo were also looking at her from time to time. Yi Qing Luo knew that too. The performance of her brothers in the devil class for the past 2 days was indeed too eye-catching. To be noticed by these instructors was a matter of course. But Yi Qing Luo didn't put it to heart. She had no intention to restrain herself and let her brothers continue to hide in the dark. I have a feeling that the instructors will think of ways to torture us. Tong Ziqing narrowed her eyes and said coldly, I've heard that the instructors who specialize in training students love and hate students like us the most. Most of the instructors probably had this kind of mentality, listening to orders, obeying all the instructions and completing all the tasks in the best manner. This kind of students made the instructors very fond of them, but it also made the instructors want to test how big this kind of student's potential was. Because of this, they would constantly increase the intensity of the training, torturing these capable students. In terms of abnormality, I feel that no one is more abnormal than Qing Luo. Yan Xiao erased her brows disapprovingly. No matter how these instructors want to train us, we can take it. You'd better save some energy and saliva and have a good rest. Yi Qing Luo interrupted their words. The special training in the blazing flame nest will be much more intense than your usual training. Pausing for a moment, Yi Qing Luo's sharp eyes swept across the surroundings as she lowered her voice. Inside, there might be a tough battle to be fought. The expressions of the devil class students suddenly congealed. Before they came to South Tide Continent, they had heard Yi Qing Luo mention that she wanted to find some time to make a trip to the blazing flame nest. The place which Yi Qing Luo was interested in must be an extremely important place. Therefore, before anything happens, all of you should properly receive the training of the ghost warriors. Of course, while receiving training, you also have to preserve your own forces. Yi Qing Luo's words made devil classes students all nod their heads solemnly. He rested for about 2 hours. The elders of the main academy repeatedly confirmed that there was no problem with the barrier, before returning to inform Gui Wu. Gui Wu looked at the pile of students lying on the ground, his brows tightly knitted together. However, he did not urge the students to get up. He only nodded lightly. After resting for such a long time, Zi Qianshan and the others gradually recovered their strength. The sweat on their bodies had been evaporated by the heat waves in the blazing flame nest. Zi Qianshan could obviously feel that his face was extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 1440. When Su Xiaolian's vision was fixed on Zi Qianshan's face, she let out a terrified "ah." It attracted the attention of all the university students. When they saw Zi Qianshan's face, all of them started laughing. Zi Qianshan realized something as she hurriedly took out the palm-sized bronze mirror which she always carried with her. In the bronze mirror, his comical face was reflected. Zi Qianshan instantly spat out a mouthful of blood from anger. Yi Qing Luo. She gritted her teeth as she growled out Yi Qing Luo's name. Her eyes filled with venomous hatred. The bronze mirror in her palm was crushed by her. The broken mirror cut Zi Qianshan's palm. She totally didn't notice it. Zi Qianshan blamed herself for being so comical and embarrassing herself in front of the various academies on Yi Qing Luo. She totally didn't think about it. All these were because of her. Under the circumstance that she knew it was training, she still put on such exquisite makeup, which caused her to become a laughing stock. However, Zi Qianshan had cleanly pushed the blame away from him. After another hour, Ghost Doctor urged the students to enter the blazing flame lair. After resting for a period of time, the students' energy had mostly recovered. Entering the blazing flame lair is equivalent to entering another space. Gui Wu's tone was solemn, as cold as ice. You'd better listen to what I say. If you disobey the instructor's orders and cause yourself to meet with danger, or get seriously injured, or even die, the headquarters will not be responsible. Yes, the students replied in unison, as they responded loudly. Blazing Flame Lair, as the name suggests, is a land of flames. In the deepest part of the Blazing Flame Lair is an incomparably huge cave. Hence, after entering the Blazing Flame Lair, you will feel as though you're in a sea of flames. Gui Wu's words made those students' faces surfaced a sliver of astonishment. The periphery of the Blazing Flame Lair has already been sealed off. If you obediently move around within the boundary, the heat from the periphery will not take your lives. Gui Wu continued. The students' faces turned slightly pale, but they had already walked to this point, and Gui Wu had guaranteed that there would be no danger to their lives. None of them wanted to give up just like that. They could only brace themselves and follow behind Gui Wu as they entered the Blazing Flame Lair. The surging heat waves seemed to be able to roast people. The students immediately complained to the heavens. These heat waves were indeed not life-threatening, but to endure this heat wave for an entire day, even if he didn't die, he would still lose half his life. They opened their mouths and sucked in a mouthful of hot air. His breath was also filled with hot air. Even the surrounding environment seemed to be covered with a layer of steaming hot flames. As soon as they came in, there were students who couldn't wait to drink water. There were also some male students who directly took off the clothes on their upper bodies, leaving only the weighted soft armor on. But even though they were naked, they still felt hot. As for those female students, even if it was so hot that they wanted to take off their clothes, they could only resist this urge. It was like being on fire, and they were meat wrapped in flames. I'm going to die of heat. What the hell is this place? No, I can't take it anymore. I want to go out. I want to leave this place. The students were howling nonstop. There were students who wanted to rush out of the Blazing Flame Lair. However, when they neared the exit, their bodies seemed to be obstructed by something as they were bounced back. That was a boundary. The students were dumbfounded. Chapter 1441. Of course. Gui Wu paused for a moment. His icy cold gaze made the students who were burning up feel a chill rising up. This chill did not disperse the heat on their bodies. Instead, it made them feel a stifling heat, a chill down their spine. You can choose to reject the training, refuse to follow the team, then think of your own ways to leave the Blazing Flame Lair. Gui Wu said the second half of the sentence. The students were filled with resentment. Under this kind of environment, how could they choose to find their own ways to leave? If they followed the team, at least they would be able to survive these 6 days safely. If they left by themselves, in such a strange place, who knew if they would suddenly meet with danger? They could only clench their teeth and choose to follow the team deeper into the Blazing Flame Lair. Along the way, more and more male students were left with only one piece of weighted armor. The female students cried out incessantly as they tore at the clothes on their bodies. Among the 1,500 students, there were at least 500 female students. Among them, there was no lack of beauties. But at this moment, those male students were so hot that they did not even have the mood to pay attention to those half-clothed beauties. Even the 4 instructors were sweating profusely. But looking at Gui Wu and Zhou Mo, both of them had a calm expression, not even a drop of sweat dripping down from their foreheads, as though they were not affected by the heat wave at all. If it was only Gui Wu and Zhou Mo who were fine, then so be it. But countless students realized, following closely behind Gui Wu, were the 60 over Devil class students. Their clothes were neat and tidy, their steps orderly, with a relaxed and leisurely expression. What the hell was this? They were so hot that they wanted to run around naked. Why were the Devil class students not affected by the weather? As students, how could they not be compared to the Devil class in any way? This Devil class students, what kind of perverts were they? After walking for about 10 over kilometers, those students were already exhausted, panting, and had no energy to walk any further. Zhou Mo looked behind him at those students who had already dragged out a long line and called out for a temporary break. The students couldn't care less about the scorching heat of the ground. They all fell to the ground and became corpses. Emo swept a glance at the expressionless devil-class students with interest, as he directly walked towards Yi-Ching Luo, who was drinking water. How did you know that we would choose the location of the special training to be at the blazing flame nest? I don't know. Yi-Ching Luo put down the kettle in her hand and raised her head to meet that pair of exceptionally charming phoenix eyes. You don't know. Emo had a faint smile on his face full of disbelief. If you don't know, then how could you have prepared the ice pearl in advance to resist the heat waves of the flame nest? Yi-Ching Luo calmly curled her lips as she gave a sweet smile. Frost ice pearl is considered as Valley Wind City's specialty. My classmates, and I will naturally buy one each as a souvenir. Icy frost pearl. It was a bead made to counter the heat waves of the fire nest. As long as it was worn, it would not be affected by the high temperature, because the flame lair was located on the South Wave continent. As the main city, Valley Wind City, all the shops of all sizes would sell glacial ice pearls. Yi-Ching Luo knew in advance that Heavenly Dean would think of a way to send them into the flame lair, to become the king of darkness's food. Yi-Ching Luo also didn't know when Heavenly Dean would execute his plan. So, Yi-Ching Luo took the opportunity to leave the training grounds in advance. Chapter 1442. Devil Class and the others were all wearing the frost pearl. Because of this, they who were situated in the Inferno Nest would not be affected by the heat wave. To them, they didn't feel hot, but instead felt extremely cool. Yi-Ching Luo's reply was reasonable. Emo had no way to pursue further, as he squinted his phoenix eyes as he gave an evil, charming smile. Student Yi-Ching Luo's luck is really not bad. Yi-Ching Luo smiled lightly. I think so too. The two of them looked at each other and smiled, but in their hearts, each of them had their own different thoughts. After resting for a while, Ghost Doctor didn't stay any longer. To let these students continue to lie down, they were even more unwilling to stand up. There was a possibility that before they reached their destination, these people would drink all the water they had. Looking at the sky, Ghost Doctor spoke in a deep voice. Line up! Go! The students were in despair, but they had no way to defy the order. They could only clench their teeth as they stood up and walked forward. They looked resentfully at the calm bunch of devil-class students in front of them as they wanted to cry, but had no tears. The students from the other academies couldn't bear it any longer as they squeezed to the side of Zi Qianqian and the others as they asked softly, You're all Heavenly Academy students. Can you ask Devil Class? How on earth did they endure this kind of heat? Zi Qianqian was sweating profusely. The hot weather made her feel even more annoyed. Hearing someone mention asking her to go to the Devil Class at this time, her mood instantly exploded. If you want to ask, go ask yourself. The students who were shouted at had their faces sunk. One by one, their disdainful gazes swept past Zi Qianqian coldly as they ridiculed impolitely. You're not as good as Yi-Ching Luo. Why are you getting angry at us? Do you really think you're the #1 beauty? Why don't you take a look at your comical look? I spit. In the hot weather, one's temper would explode at the slightest provocation. These few female students originally wanted to speak nicely and ask for some advice, to let everyone relax a little. Whoever knew that they were bombarded by Zi Qianqian, not as good as Yi-Ching Luo. Just based on her, what qualifications does she have to be compared with Yi-Ching Luo? She's not even fit to carry Yi-Ching Luo's shoes. Another female student chimed in. The way I see it, these students from the class of gods are nothing but a joke. 1 or 2 of them can't even compare to the toes of the devil class. Didn't you guys see Zi Qianqian's embarrassing performance just now? How could she become the #1 beauty of the Heavenly Academy with this appearance? I thought I could get into the academy and the class of gods with money, but now I can buy the title of the #1 beauty with money. Sentence after sentence of ridicule caused Zi Qianshan's face to turn red. When had Zi Qianshan ever suffered such humiliation? All along, she had always been high and mighty, receiving the flattery of everyone. Over the years, Zhang Xian's participation in the inter-academy exchange had left a beautiful impression in the hearts of the students of the other academies. But this time, he had suffered such great humiliation. Everything was Yi Qing Luo's fault. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo, the one in the limelight today would be her. Zi Qianshan. All of you, shut up. What nonsense are you spouting? Our Qianshan goddess is a goddess. If you want to bootlick the devil class, then go to the front and do it. Don't be an eyesore. Seeing this, Su Xiaolian immediately grabbed Zi Qianshan's arm and stood up for her. Su Xiaolian didn't want to stand out, but now she was already on the same boat as Zi Qianshan. Chapter 1443. The commotion at the back did not affect the neatly organized team at the front. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo could not be bothered with the students' dispute. The 4 instructors also did not bother about it. The devil class students could vaguely hear that the reason for the commotion was related to the devil class, but they pretended not to hear. In this hot weather, they still had the leisure to quarrel. After wasting so much saliva when all the water in the water source pearl was extracted, they would know how stupid their actions were. They walked for another 5 kilometers or so. Those students finally did not have the energy to make a ruckus. The entire team once again fell into silence. They only felt that their legs were like lead balls, unable to move even half a step. The students' willpower was slowly being worn down. The number of students who fell to the ground increased, but Gui Wu did not have the intention to stop and rest. He continued to lead the way, minding his own business. The wind brought his deep and steady voice. There is still another 20 kilometers ahead. We will rest there today. 20 kilometers. Oh my God! I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going either. So what if I die? If we continue, I'm going to lose my life. When the students heard this number, they were all stunned. One by one, they immediately knelt on the ground. They would rather die here than take another step forward. What kind of training was this? Early in the morning, they were made to wear a 70-kilogram soft armor. After walking for half a day, then they changed to the blazing flame nest and continued to run with heavy loads. F***K. Was he trying to train them to be little cross-country athletes? All this training had nothing to do with them raising their profound qi. Just as the students were grumbling in their hearts, they heard Zomo's clear voice again. 20 kilometers ahead, there is a tent that we have set up. Inside, we have stored lunch for today and sufficient water. Only those students who have reached the destination are qualified to eat lunch and drink water. After a pause, he smiled and continued. I believe that the students' water source pearls did not store much water. Not only did they not store much, what's more, they did not even think of storing water. Who would have thought that Gui Wu would suddenly bring them to the wilderness for training? He had to admit that Zomo's words were a blatant temptation. Lying here, they could only wait for death. However, as long as he persevered for another 20 kilometers, not only would he be able to eat, but he would also be able to replenish his water supply. When faced with a multiple-choice question, everyone would undoubtedly choose the latter. This was undoubtedly an incentive. The students who had been howling about dying here gritted their teeth and stood up one by one, continuing to walk behind the group. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but gave a thumbs up to Zomo's move. He still didn't know whether Zhou was telling the truth or not. However, regardless of whether it was true or not, looking at how the students were moving with all their might, it was enough to prove that Zomo's move was correct. Devil Class's students had already shaken off the students behind them by a huge distance, just about 10 kilometers away from the destination. Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt an intense restlessness. Something wet suddenly covered her neck. That damp hair with a sultry feeling. Even if she was wearing the frost pearl, Yi Qing Luo still felt a wave of heat from her neck. Woo, woo, woo. Chapter 1444. Chi-Chi. Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand and touched the bundle of hair hanging on her neck. It was Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi crawled out of the pet space on her own. Chi-Chi is turning into barbecued meat. Chi-Chi looked at Yi Qing Luo with an aggrieved look. Chi-Chi is so hot. Touching the wet fur on her hand, Yi Qing Luo could tell that Chi-Chi was about to turn into roasted meat. In this climate, there was even a thick layer of hair on his back. Yi Qing Luo took out a frost pearl from the profound phoenix ring and stuffed it into Chi-Chi's mouth. After sucking on the ice pearl for a while, Chi-Chi finally regained her spirit. Its little body rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. Its wet fur was so sticky that Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but stretch out her hand to pull Chi-Chi down. Why did you come out? Yi Qing Luo asked Chi-Chi. Gue Wu and Zhou Mo were still up ahead. Yi Qing Luo could not talk to Chi-Chi directly. Otherwise, if others knew that Chi-Chi could speak human language, they would definitely be shocked. He was afraid that there would be endless trouble. Chi-Chi felt the calling and thought that Master was summoning Chi-Chi, so Chi-Chi came out. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes and looked at Yi Qing Luo in an adorable manner. But after coming out, Chi-Chi then felt that it was not Master's summon. Summon? Is it the summoning you felt before? Chi-Chi shook her head. It's even stronger than that summoning feeling. It was as if it was right in front of him. That's why Chi-Chi thought Master was summoning Chi-Chi. Close at hand. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she carefully pondered over Chi-Chi's words. Ever since they arrived at the South Wave continent, Chi-Chi could sense that a certain place in the South Wave continent was constantly calling for Chi-Chi. Yi Qing Luo had already asked Wind to investigate that place. After arriving at the flame lair, Chi-Chi actually felt that the summoning was getting stronger, and he even thought that she was the one who was summoning Chi-Chi. In other words, the thing that summoned Chi-Chi was in the fire lair. She had asked Wind to follow the direction that Chi-Chi had pointed out to the location where they were headed. Was it the flame lair? This matter was too much of a coincidence. Chi-Chi, go back to the pet space first and bring a frost pearl for Shijue. Yi Qing Luo placed Chi-Chi on her shoulder. Her half-squinted eyes were suffused with a glimmer of brilliance. Chi-Chi, don't forget to accurately sense the direction where you are being summoned. Chi-Chi let out a low howl. With a frost pearl in its mouth, it was about to return to the pet space. However, he heard a mocking voice. This is training, not a field trip. You even brought your pet? Zi Qianshan quickly walked over with the help of Su Xiaolian and the others. Zi Qianshan was sweating profusely, and her clothes were already soaked in sweat, sticking to her beautiful body. She had already washed away the colorful stains on her face with water. A beauty was indeed a beauty. Even without makeup, her appearance was still extremely beautiful. Coupled with this wet and seductive look, she really did look a little charming. After arguing with the female students, Zi Qianshan found it increasingly tiring. She didn't even have the strength to control her profound qi to resist the heat wave. Seeing that the devil class was still in high spirits, without any signs of heat, Zi Qianshan finally couldn't take it any longer, as she wanted to ask Yi Qing Luo if she had secretly cheated or played any tricks. But she saw Yi Qing Luo hugging a palm-sized white cat, talking intimately to it. Chapter 1445. The students of the various academies were drenched in sweat. They were on the verge of losing their lives. And Yi Qing Luo was still able to carry a cat, playing and laughing. When Zi Qianshan saw this scene, he felt that it was unfair in his heart, and words of mockery had already escaped his mouth. Yi Qing Luo shot a glance at Zi Qianshan as she leisurely carried Chi-Chi in her arms and stroked its fur. Her lips curled into a faint smile, Whoever I bring along has nothing to do with student Zi Qianshan. You're a student of the Heavenly Academy. This special training is very important. If you bring a magical beast with you, then forget it. However, with such a pet, are you trying to drag the academy down? Zi Qianqian frowned and reprimanded him in a serious manner. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Till now, Zi Qianqian was still talking to her about students from the Heavenly Academy. Talk to her and drag the academy back. The person who was least qualified to say such a thing was Zi Qianqian, all right? When she was instigating Su Xiaolian to disregard the reputation of the Heavenly Academy and slander the devil class. Why didn't Zi Qianqian think of the Heavenly Academy? When he instigated Su Xiaolian to be the last to arrive at the training ground, causing the Heavenly Academy students to not be able to have lunch together, why didn't he think that he was dragging the Heavenly Academy down? In fact, isn't the one dragging the Heavenly Academy down you from the class of gods Zi Qianqian? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she sneered. If you have the energy to find trouble with me, you might as well save some energy. There's still a few kilometers to go. I'm worried that, in the end, you'll be carried to the destination. You. Zi Qianqian's face darkened as he gritted his teeth and glared at Yi Qing Luo. I know my stamina very well. I don't need you to be a busybody. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly as she looked at Zi Qianqian as though she was looking at an idiot. Did you think that after reaching the destination, you would be able to recover your energy? Our Heavenly Academy can't even have lunch because of someone. Zi Qianqian felt a lump in his throat. The words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't spit them out. That was right. The Heavenly Academy did not have the right to have lunch. That was to say, even if they arrived at their destination, the Heavenly Academy could only starve and watch the students of other academies eat. There was no chance for them to replenish their strength. The feeling of hunger and pain in his abdomen expanded in an instant. At this moment, Zi Qianqian was filled with regret. How could he be so stupid? For the sake of taking revenge on the devil class, he actually threw himself into this mess. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about Zi Qianqian's gloomy expression as she carried Chi-Chi and walked past her. Just as she returned to the group, Yi Qing Luo saw a pair of interested eyes staring at her. Chi-Chi in her arms. It was Zomo's gaze. Awoo, look at that little guy, doesn't it look like? Zomo nudged the ghost martial artist with his hand. Gue Wu lightly swept a glance at Chi-Chi before his pupils abruptly contracted. That is. Gue Wu's gaze gradually turned grave as he strode towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Zomo pulled him back in time. Don't be impulsive. That's just a little kid. We're only guessing right now. That's clearly the holy beast, the white tiger. Gue Wu's brows were tightly knitted together as his pair of malicious eyes swept past Yi Qing Luo and then looked at Chi-Chi, who was in her arms. She actually possesses the sacred beast, white tiger? How could the holy beast, white tiger, sign a contract with such an ordinary girl? Chapter 1446. Gue Wu turned silent. It was about a young girl who was not even 16 years old, contracting the holy beast white tiger, controlling the legendary divine dragon, and obtaining a divine artifact. It was not that he had never heard of it. However, he subconsciously believed that this was just a premeditated propaganda method. After all, no one in the world had actually seen the so-called holy beast white tiger. Perhaps that girl had only contracted a slightly higher grade tiger beast, and she had deliberately made it look like the holy beast white tiger to intimidate those who didn't understand. But now he saw with his own eyes the white tiger that looked like a cat. Gue Wu had to admit it. It was the legendary white tiger, one of the 4 great sacred beasts. No one else had seen it before, but he had definitely seen it before. That also meant the rumor about the tomb of the Ling King was indeed true. That so-called divine dragon, could it be one of the 4 great sacred beasts, the Azure Dragon? If that was the case, Gue Wu's expression suddenly turned grave as he turned his head to look at Zoemo. I don't know anything. That's your upper realm's business. I'm just a normal person. Don't ask me. Zoemo quickly cut off the haunted house's question. After that, his narrow and long phoenix eyes narrowed, and his face didn't have the usual teasing and careless expression. What replaced it was a deep heaviness. Of course, regardless of whether she is or not, these words should not be mentioned in the lower realm. Gue Wu pursed his lips. His gaze turned and gazed deeply at Yi Qing Luo for some time. Clenching his fists, he averted his gaze and stopped probing. It wasn't that Yi Qing Luo hadn't felt Gue Wu's increasingly naked gaze. She was not used to this kind of intense gaze, as if it could see through her soul. Previously, Gue Wu had been staring at Chi-Chi, and now he was staring at her. Could it be? Did Gue Wu discover Chi-Chi's identity? Cough, cough. In her mind, Old Man Song's voice suddenly sounded. Little Luo, you have to be careful. Recently, Old Man Song had always been cultivating in seclusion within the Azure Dew Bracelet. He said that he needed to raise his mental power as soon as possible so that he could condense his spirit body and walk out of the Azure Dew Bracelet to move around in a certain range around Yi Qing Luo, apart from the occasional conversation with Old Man Song. She hadn't heard Old Man Song take the initiative to look for her in a very long time. That ghost martial artist. Old Man Song seemed to be hesitating on what words to use to describe him. After a long while, he finally said, Don't get too close to him. Yi Qing Luo was at a loss. Old Man Song, do you know him? I don't know him. His straightforward and decisive answer made others even more suspicious. But Yi Qing Luo didn't continue to question. Old Man Song would not harm her. Since Old Man Song had told her not to get too close to Gue Wu, it was definitely because of Old Man Song. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's silence, Old Man Song sighed and said, Towards you, although he doesn't have any malicious intentions, but it's better to minimize contact. I understand. Yi Qing Luo nodded and placed Chi-Chi on her shoulder. Qing Luo. Long Yunjian walked behind her as he suppressed his voice and asked, What happened to Chi-Chi? All the students in the devil class knew Chi-Chi's identity. He also knew that Chi-Chi was very obedient and would not leave the pet space on her own. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Yi Qing Luo to summon Chi-Chi. There was only one possibility. It was Chi-Chi herself who came out from the pet space. Yi Qing Luo stroked Chi-Chi's wet fur. Nothing much, it's just too hot. So I came out to get some fresh air. Although her words were so calm, however, her eyes flickered slightly. Chapter 1447. Such a large group, under the speed of a tortoise, gradually arrived at their destination. Yi Qing Luo and the rest walked right at the front, and from afar they could see a large piece of empty land, where a large wooden shed was built. It looked to be able to accommodate 700 to 800 people. She gauged the environment of the wooden shed. Yi Qing Luo had a bad premonition in her heart. Accommodating 700 to 800 people meant that half of the students had no way to rest. If they wanted to enter the wooden shed to rest, based on ghost martial artist and these instructors' nature, there would definitely be a competition or training. Why must they let a group of students kill each other? Yi Qing Luo and the rest followed the instructors and were the first batch of people to reach the wooden shed. Behind them was a long line of people. The students used all their energy as they tried their best to take a step forward. Those students, when they saw the wooden shed, which was just a few feet away, they were filled with even more motivation. Just at this moment, Instructor Luo wiped off the sweat on his forehead as he looked at the few rows of people behind him. As he laughed loudly, Devil Class's aptitude is indeed not bad. The weighted soft armor and the blazing flame lair didn't have much effect on you. Not bad, not bad. His voice was thick. Through the transmission of profound qi, Instantly, the entire blazing flame layer's outer skies resounded with Instructor Luo's voice. When those students heard it, they instantly felt a deafening sound. When they heard Instructor Luo praising Devil Class, they instantly felt a sense of embarrassment as it surged up their hearts. Instructor Luo's words. Was he ridiculing them that they were not as good as Devil Class? Although this was the truth. But no one was willing to admit it. And at this moment, no matter what, they would not give up. This time there are a total of 790 beds in the wooden shed, which means there are 790 students who can lie down and rest at night. The rest of the students will settle their own resting places. Instructor Luo's deep voice continued to ring. Yi Qing Luo's premonition had come true. The other students' hearts suddenly trembled as they felt inexplicably uneasy. Students who arrive at the destination earlier will be able to enjoy the beds in the wooden shed, regardless of school, regardless of class, only based on who arrived first. After a pause, Instructor Luo said meaningfully, "Of course, you can also snatch the beds of other students, as long as you have the ability, under the precondition that you are not allowed to use your profound energy and do not cripple, seriously injure, or endanger someone's life. You can use any method to snatch the beds of the students who have beds." As soon as Instructor Luo's voice fell, the students of the various academies were shocked. What kind of damned rule was this? 790 beds. This meant that at least 600 students had no beds. He was the first to arrive at the wooden shed, but he still had to guard against the 600 or so students snatching his bed. This was really forcing them to kill each other. In this world, the weak are prey to the strong, and the strong are respected. If you don't have absolute strength, you won't have the qualifications to protect what belongs to you. Gue Wu directly ignored the resentful gazes of the students, as well as their bitter expressions. The university students were unable to refute Gue Wu's words. He didn't have powerful strength. They would not be able to protect what belonged to them. Gue Wu was teaching them the way to survive in the Jianghu, even if the bed would be snatched away in the end. But there were still quite a number of students who tried their best to push away the students in front as they tried their best to sprint towards their destination. Quite a number of students who were already exhausted at this moment unknowingly found the strength to actually start running. When Yi Qing Luo saw this scene, she could only sigh. Chapter 1448. Yi Qing Luo and the rest, along with Gue Wu and the rest, arrived at the destination one after the other. Devil Class had the right to choose the beds. Yi Qing Luo took a look at those beds. This was a temporary large wooden shed. It didn't look too beautiful, but it was still considered sturdy. Under the wooden shed, there were beds one after another. It was about the size of a normal man. On each bed there was a thin blanket. Under this kind of environment, such beds were indeed considered luxurious. Yi Qing Luo led the Devil Class, as she chose the 60 over beds at the corner. Then he pasted his name on every bed. Only after they had allocated the beds did the next wave of students arrive one after another. The students were already exhausted. Gue Wu looked at the students that were still doing their best to flock over, and his calm voice resounded through the sky. Students that have arrived can take a short break or head to the front to collect your lunch from the head academy's elder, as well as your own water bag. Hearing this, the students' eyes were almost sparkling. The students who had already arrived casually pasted their names on the beds, as they couldn't wait to collect their lunch and madly sprinted towards the direction. The rest time is 2 hours. Gue Wu didn't stop the chaotic situation. 2 hours later, today's special training will begin. 2 hours? Special training after that? Surely it wasn't a joke. The students who had already arrived, as their legs went soft, as they laid face down on the ground. As for the students who received their lunch, they almost dropped the lunch box in their hands. Those students who were still quite a distance away from their destination were all waiting for death. They were as tired as dogs, all right? just resting for 2 hours, and they had to undergo special training? How would they have the energy? Their hearts were filled with resentment, but they had no choice but to accept it. As Heavenly Academy's student, Su Xiaolian was the last to arrive at the training grounds during the morning assembly, so Heavenly Academy has cancelled her lunch rights. Gui Wu's next sentence finally made the students from the various academies feel better. Human nature was like this, couldn't bear to see others doing better than themselves. Even if Yi Qing Luo had helped them in the actual battle with the instructors yesterday. Even if Yi Qing Luo's ability made everyone fearful. But these students were already filled with jealousy towards the devil class who had been in the limelight. They couldn't wait for the devil class to suddenly fall so that they could laugh at them. Behind them, Zi Qianqian and the others, who were trying their best to move forward, heard this, and their expressions darkened. Especially Zi Qianqian. He felt like he had shot himself in the foot. She was extremely regretful now. How could he be so stupid as to instigate Su Xiaolian to be the last student to arrive at the training ground? As a result, he was half dead from exhaustion. His stomach was extremely hungry, and he could only watch helplessly as the other students ate. Furthermore, next, there would be special training. Just thinking about this, Zi Qianqian's legs turned to jelly. Isn't Yi Qing Luo that slut very arrogant? If we don't let them eat lunch, they will definitely clamor with the instructors, right? Su Xiaolian felt a chill down her spine under the horrifying gazes of the other Heavenly Academy students. She quickly hid in Zi Qianqian's direction. Su Xiaolian believed him. If they weren't in the middle of training, these Heavenly Academy students would definitely hate her to the point of killing her. Chapter 1449. Right. Yi Qing Luo, that slut, had always been arrogant. If the devil class couldn't have lunch, Yi Qing Luo would definitely fight for it. At that time, she would fan the flames. Yi Qing Luo would definitely receive a more severe punishment. Thinking of this, Zi Qianqian suddenly felt unlimited potential. Gritting his teeth, he sped towards the direction of the wooden shed. The students who had arrived were wolfing down the food in the lunchbox, although it was a very simple and ordinary civilian dish. But the exhausted students were eating happily. There was no longer the arrogance of yesterday in the canteen of the training grounds, seeing porridge and vegetables and losing their appetite. The air was filled with the aroma of the food. It made the stomachs of the students who had yet to arrive grumble. Zi Qianqian and the 10 over Intermediate Class 2 students had finally arrived at their destination, before they could even catch their breath. They saw Yi Qing Luo, who was standing at the same spot, watching the students eating, suddenly walking towards the direction of Gui Wu. Su Xiaolian shook Zi Qianqian's arm agitatedly. The group of people immediately looked over. Indeed, as they had expected, based on Yi Qing Luo's character, she would definitely turn the world upside down. Zi Qianqian hid the joy on his face and put on his usual aloof look as he walked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Master Gui Wu. Yi Qing Luo's cold voice did not have any fear towards Gui Wu, but it contained a sense of respect towards her teacher. Gui Wu was deep in thought. Suddenly hearing Yi Qing Luo's voice, he raised his eyes and met her cold gaze. That pair of long and narrow eyes were clean and pure, without any other impurities. It was like a calm lake without the slightest ripple. Gui Wu was stunned. He didn't know how long it had been since he had such a calm gaze. Those people would only look away helplessly after meeting his gaze. However, this young girl was able to remain so calm. Facing his oppressive aura, she was fearless. Thinking of the day before yesterday, when he and Zhou Emo hid near Yi Qing Luo's room and were discovered by her, he had a faint guess in his heart, but felt that it was too ridiculous. Master Gui Wu. Seeing Gui Wu staring at her with a burning gaze but not saying a word, Yi Qing Luo called out again. Coincidentally, Zi Qianqian had already rushed to their side. I say, student Yi Qing Luo, rules are rules, you. Master Gui Wu, may we collect our water bags? Zi Qianqian and Yi Qingluo's voices rang at the same time. Zi Qianqian's voice stopped abruptly when he heard Yi Qingluo's question. What did you just say? Zi Qianqian could not believe his ears. How could Yi Qingluo be so polite? And he didn't ask for a set of food for those bastards in devil class? Yi Qingluo couldn't be bothered with Zi Qianqian as she quietly looked at Gui Wu. Gui Wu came back to his senses. Wrinkling his eyebrows, he nodded his head. Sure. Thank you, Master Gui Wu. Yi Qingluo politely nodded her head. When the students of devil class heard that, they immediately bowed respectfully towards Gui Wu. Thank you, Master Gui Wu. More than 60 people spoke in unison. Many people turned their gazes over. In his heart, he was wondering what the devil class was up to this time. Following that, they saw the group of people from the devil class walking towards the direction to collect their meals. Isn't the devil class students from the Heavenly Academy? Haven't they been banned from having lunch? Why can they still collect their lunch? What kind of punishment is this? I'm not convinced. That's right, Master Gui Wu personally set the rules. How can it be gone just like that? Chapter 1450. Facing the devil class students who were better than them in everything. The students of the various academies spared no effort in finding ways to crush them. Their motive for coming here, it was to bring glory to the academy and for their own future, to add a glory that could be sung. Everything had been stolen by the devil class, which was the Heavenly Academy. How were they going to answer to the academy? Even if Yi Qingluo had helped them yesterday, that gratitude and worship had been depleted under their selfish thoughts. It was not easy to suppress the Heavenly Academy on the matter of the lunch ban. It was rare for the students from the various academies to work together to stop the students from the devil class. Shut up! Instructor Luo was also carrying a lunch box and was stuffing his rice in a rude manner. Hearing those students' indignant cries, his love for young students with potential made him defend them angrily. Don't say that devil class isn't collecting their lunch now. Even if they collect it, that's a matter of course. What's the point of rules? To the strong, ability is the rule. Which one of you can be like devil class, wearing a weighted soft armor, and keep up with my footsteps? I'll give you another set of lunch. Instructor Luo's rough voice made the entire crowd's discussion stopped abruptly. The students shrunk their necks and didn't dare to open their mouths. Indeed, none of them could do it. As for Instructor Luo, he had no intention to let those troublemakers off. If you can't do it, then shut up. Look at devil class students. Some of them are even wearing 2 sets of weighted soft armor. And look at you. Tell me, devil class students are collecting their lunch. Isn't it a matter of course? He was protective. He didn't forget to pull the surrounding students to help him protect them. The students lowered their heads, not even daring to breathe loudly. Is it? Instructor Luo frowned as he bellowed furiously. Those students immediately straightened their backs. Yes. Hearing the echoes, Instructor Luo's expression then eased up and didn't say another word. The students had grievances in their hearts, but they didn't dare to vent it out. They could only use a vengeful gaze to stare fiercely at Yi Qingluo's direction. Zi Qianqian saw this, and his heart overflowed with ecstasy. Yi Qingluo, that slut, really liked to be in the limelight. As a result, they had become the target of public criticism. She wanted to see just how powerful Yi Qingluo was. He could withstand the jealousy and resentment from the students of the various academies. The students of devil class each received a water bag. The water bag was about the size of 2 palms, and it was filled to the brim. The greatest need in the flame lair was water, and in a situation where there was no glacial ice pearl, this bag of water would at most, after this meal, it was completely wiped out. The other students did not understand the importance of water, but Yi Qingluo had already explained it through the mercenary group badge. The devil class students did not waste this bag of water as they kept it all into their space pockets. Seeing the actions of the devil class's students, Those students who had grudges in their hearts slowly shifted their gazes away. The rules only forbid lunch. They were not forbidden from collecting water bags. Devil class's actions could not be considered as violating Ghost Warrior's rules. Naturally, they didn't mind. The focus of the students was that the students from the Devil class had received their water bags. Chapter 1451. This class absolutely wasn't their first time undergoing this kind of outdoor training. Every single one of their performances made them feel amazed. A few of the drill instructors kept flipping through the information regarding the Devil class in their minds. The more they thought about this mysterious class, the more they felt that there was an expert guiding them. If these instructors knew that these students had only followed Yi Qing Luo to the magic beast forest and other dangerous places, to stay for 1 or 2 times, they had already developed this habit. Those instructors would definitely shout out excitedly, "A bunch of geniuses! Master Gui Wu!" Just as the few teachers were feeling extremely complicated, they heard a clear voice ringing. "Student Yi Qing Luo, is there anything else?" Gui Wu raised his brows as he asked with interest. Yi Qing Luo smiled politely. "During the rest time, can I bring Devil class students for a walk nearby?" "Where do you want to go?" Gui Wu's malicious eyes suddenly flashed a ray of brilliance. Yi Qing Luo was neither servile nor overbearing. "A foreign place, we're not used to it, so we want to walk around to adapt to the life here. The surrounding area is protected by the Elder's enchantment, so we won't go too far." Gui Wu narrowed his eyes as he nodded after some time. "Pay attention to your safety." This wasn't the special training time. The students weren't willing to use the rest time to rest, so he wouldn't obstruct them. Yi Qing Luo bowed politely again and immediately led the Devil class students as they walked towards another direction. In the flame nest, the temperature was extremely high, but the trees were lush as though it was a forest standing above the sea of fire. Yi Qing Luo and the 60 people, after passing through the stretch of lush trees, disappeared without a trace. That bunch of students were dumbstruck, not taking advantage of the rest time to have a good rest. What were Devil class students trying to do? Zi Qianshan's expression was gloomy. The scene in her mind ultimately didn't play out as she wished. She stared at Yi Qing Luo's departing figure as she clenched her fists tightly. Just as she was about to chase up, her stomach gave out a goo-goo sound. After a period of torture, Zi Qianshan was already trembling from hunger. How would she have the energy to chase after Devil class? Yi Qing Luo and the rest walked one round around the cold surroundings. Yi Qing Luo was explaining on how to memorize all the routes in such a complicated terrain. The youths in Devil class listened extremely seriously, and in his mind he learnt Yi Qing Luo's method, sketching out the places that he had walked past in his mind. The temperature of the fire nest was extremely high. Trees that could grow in this temperature also contained extremely strong heat. If this kind of tree was used to start a fire, it would definitely catch on fire. After walking one round around the outer perimeter, Yi Qing Luo had already memorized the rough terrain completely in her mind. He calculated the time. Not even half the time had passed. They still had an hour left. After walking around the periphery, Chi-Chi also felt that the feeling of being summoned did not change at all. That was to say, the power that had summoned Chi-Chi was inside the fire lair. Inside the flame lair, there must be a lot of danger. After all, the so-called prophecy of the descent of the divine item was within the fire lair. None of the people sent by the various forces returned alive. One could imagine that the interior of the fire nest was definitely not simple. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled as her slender hand immediately pressed against her chest. Chapter 1452. Wind had followed the direction which Chi-Chi had provided and went to search for that place. The various powerhouses' men were unable to come out from the blazing flame nest alive. Then Wind he. This thought made Yi Qing Luo inexplicably flustered. Wind was Xian's man. He was placed by Ah Xian's side to protect her. If something happened to Wind, how is she going to answer to Di Mo Xian? What's the matter? Long Yunjian had been paying attention to Yi Qing Luo's expression, and on seeing her suddenly stopping, he immediately asked. Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth, but immediately pursed her pink lips. The existence of the Dark Guard was extremely secretive, even if it was her own brother. One of the imperial palace's 4 great guardians' Dark Guard was by her side. She couldn't let them know. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the time and clenched her fists tightly as she shook her head. Bring the students to walk around nearby first. I'll rush back before the training starts. Saying that, Yi Qing Luo didn't wait for Long Yunjian's reply as she turned around and directly flashed, disappearing into the direction of the dense forest. Qing Luo! Long Yunjian only had time to shout out and saw Yi Qing Luo's figure, disappearing in front of his eyes. What's the matter? Yan Xiaoyi frowned as she looked at the direction where Yi Qing Luo disappeared. Where is Qing Luo going? Long Yunjian shook his head. Her complexion isn't very good. I'm a little worried. Kitty, go chase after sister. Long Yunjian's words had yet to end when he saw a greenish-white figure flashed past his eyes. That sweet voice made the few of them stunned. Kitty! Long Yunjian frowned as he cried out sharply, "Come back!" However, the only response to Long Yunjian was that flickering grass and trees. The atmosphere of the Devil class's students instantly became rather solemn. For some time, no one dared to open their mouths to break the silent atmosphere. All the students could tell that the current Long Yunjian was extremely angry. Class monitor. Yan Xiao looked at the Devil class's students who stood rooted to the ground, not daring to move as she took a deep breath. Qing Luo will be fine. Kitty's nose is very sensitive and only she can chase up to Qing Luo, don't worry. Long Yunjian's pupils contracted. He stared unblinkingly at the direction where Yi Qing Luo had left, as his azure blue eyes, as though it was sparkling. After a long time, he withdrew his gaze. His entire body tensed up like a block of iron. He bellowed, "Let's go back!" With that, he turned around and strode in the direction of the wooden shed. Tong Ziqing immediately jogged up to her as she cautiously shouted, "Class monitor, don't worry. Qing Luo knows her limits. If after the break time, Qing Luo still hasn't returned, we can seek help from Master Gui Wu." Long Yunjian ignored Tong Ziqing's words. With a gloomy face, he walked very quickly. It was as if he didn't care about the girl behind him who was trying to catch up to him. Looking at that cold and hard side profile, Tong Ziqing felt a sour feeling in her heart. She knew that right now, Long Yunjian's thoughts were all on Yi Qing Luo. Long Yunjian would not stop. He wouldn't even look at her, because she wasn't Yi Qing Luo. But as long as she could stay by Long Yunjian's side, even if he ignored her, she would gladly endure it. Shrubs, grass, lush trees. This kind of terrain, to Yi Qing Luo, was the best terrain. One must know that in the 21st century, she was once thrown into the wild forest by that bunch of old men from the Yi family and left to roam for 3 days and 3 nights. Over there, it wasn't like now. To be able to have Qi, a sacred beast to boost her might, to have profound Qi, to wave a hand to repel a wave of wild beasts. Chapter 1453. At that time she was barehanded. On her entire body there were only 3 pieces of chocolate. Just like that, she entered the wild forest. She wanted to survive. She wanted to survive in the mouths of those vicious, wild beasts. She had to make use of her own skills and the surrounding terrain to create more chances of survival. This kind of grass in the blazing flame nest had no effect on Yi Qing Luo at all. Following the aura of the barrier, her figure was agile as she speedily shuttled through those grass and trees. In just a short moment, she had already rushed to the boundary of the Elder's barrier. As long as she passed through this barrier, she would enter the inner part of the blazing flame nest. But how to pass through the barrier and not attract the attention of the Elder? The barrier around this place was jointly established by the 6 elders of the main institute. As long as a student or anything else came into contact with the barrier, the 6 elders would immediately sense it, forcefully breaking through the barrier. Let's not talk about whether she could succeed or not. If she really used force, the elders would definitely sense it and rush over to stop her. By then, she would really not be able to explain herself. Master, master. Chi-Chi's crisp voice was heard on her shoulder. Chi-Chi felt it again. That summoning feeling is right in front, and it's very strong. Yi-Ching Luo's expression congealed. Indeed, her guess was right. That summoning force was emitted from the inner part of the blazing flame nest. Most likely. This force was the southern continent's imperial tutor's prophecy of the descent of the divine object? This thought made Yi-Ching Luo increasingly worried about Wind's safety. So many powerful, high-leveled cultivators. Under this force, no one could survive, no matter how powerful Wind was. He was still a 17 to 18-year-old youngster. With this thought in mind, Yi-Ching Luo's heart was getting more and more anxious. Sister! Suddenly, a soft petite body covered her from behind. 2 soft arms circled around her waist. Yi-Ching Luo's body tensed up and immediately felt a familiar feeling as she calmed down. But her expression was solemn as she pried open the hands on her waist. Kitty, why are you following me? The person behind her was Kitty Lee. She wasn't surprised that Kitty Lee would follow her. Kitty Lee's sense of smell was very sensitive. Furthermore, she had the nature of a cat, so she could easily move through the forest. But Yi-Ching Luo had not expected Kitty Lee to choose to follow her. Kitty Lee blinked her spirited cat eyes, because she was shuttling through the forest. The headscarf covering her ears had long been lost somewhere. That pair of black ears were exposed right in front of Yi-Ching Luo's eyes. Sister, Kitty can feel that you're worried about something. Kitty can also feel your uneasiness and panic. Kitty Lee wiggled her ears. Kitty is very worried about Big Sis. I can't let Big Sis be alone. Cats had the most intuitive sense of human emotional changes. It was because she sensed the helplessness and panic in Yi-Ching Luo's heart. That was why Kitty Lee didn't say a single word and chased up to Yi-Ching Luo's footsteps. His sister had always been confident and strong. Will have such emotions. No matter what, Kitty Lee could not allow her sister to wander around this dangerous place alone. Feeling Kitty Lee's undisguised concern, Yi-Ching Luo's heart softened a little as she rubbed Kitty Lee's head lovingly. I've made Kitty Lee worried. Don't worry, I'm fine. Chapter 1454. The sincerity in her eyes made Yi-Ching Luo laugh out involuntarily. She rubbed Kitty Lee's hand and softened her strength. Her palm brushed past that furry ear, and she couldn't help but pinched it. Since we've already followed you here, I'm worried to let you go back alone. Kitty Lee's little ears twitched, as though Yi-Ching Luo's pinching had tickled her. A pair of lively cat-like eyes sparkled with a radiant luster. This obedient look made Yi-Ching Luo burst out laughing. But you must promise me, no matter what happens, you must stay by my side and you're not allowed to act alone. All right. Kitty Lee stood upright as she replied loudly. Shoo! Yi-Ching Luo immediately raised her finger and made a shushing gesture. Don't let those elders find out. Don't alert them. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she covered her mouth with both hands. Yi-Ching Luo rubbed her head and immediately continued to search for a way to pass through the barrier. Sister, Kitty Lee can bring you over. Kitty Lee carefully leaned towards Yi-Ching Luo and said softly, You know how to break the barrier? Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows. A beast from the cat clan could break the barrier? Kitty Lee shook her head. Kitty Lee doesn't know how to break the barrier, but Kitty Lee can help you conceal your presence. Even if those old fogies found out, they would only treat it as an ordinary magical beast that accidentally touched the barrier. The flame nest had rather high-leveled magical beasts or mirage beasts. Those magical beasts or mirage beasts that could survive here all had fire-attributed abilities. Therefore, Kitty Lee's idea could be tried. Seeing that she could help Yi Qing Luo, Kitty Lee excitedly stretched out her hand. That fair little hand, in a blink of an eye, turned into a furry cat's paw. At the same time, Kitty Lee's clear pupils were gradually dyed with a devilish red glow. The red glow gradually spread and filled her eyeballs. Yi Qing Luo was very close. She could clearly feel a beast clan's presence emitting from Kitty Lee. The cat's sharp claws forcefully left a crack on the transparent barrier. Yi Qing Luo had yet to react. A furry tail wrapped around Yi Qing Luo's slender waist. His body felt light and his feet were suspended in the air. In the blink of an eye, he had plunged into a forest. Far away in the wooden shed, the 6 elders who were resting with their eyes closed suddenly opened their eyes. Who touched the barrier? An elder berated harshly. Gui Wu and Zoemo looked at each other and subconsciously looked in the direction of the devil class. The students of the devil class had yet to return. Could it be that they had touched the barrier? Gui Wu's eyebrows were tightly knitted together as he walked in front of an elder. With a flip of his palm, it landed on the head of an elder. The elder was startled. He immediately wanted to retreat. However, he was imprisoned by the ghost martial artist's strength and was unable to move. Suddenly, a ray of white light was emitted from the elder's body. An image appeared in midair. In the image, a lush forest was constantly swaying. Above the forest, a long black tail appeared. So it was a blind, magical beast that touched the barrier. The head institute elder heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, we have Master Gui Wu. Otherwise, we would have made a wasted trip over to check on the situation. A false alarm, a false alarm. Let's continue to guard the barrier. The few elders started to flatter him one after another, while Gui Wu kept silent as he stared at the image, at that swaying tail. Chapter 1455. Yi Qing Luo, who had plunged into the vegetation, was still held down tightly by Kitty Lee. It was until half an incense's time had passed when Kitty Lee grabbed Yi Qing Luo and speedily left the vicinity of the enchantment. Outside the boundary was the interior of the flame nest. Yi Qing Luo could obviously feel that the surrounding heat was continuing to rise. Even now, she was wearing the ice pearl. That scorching heat made Yi Qing Luo unable to adapt to it. The interior of the fire layer was indeed different from the periphery. Yi Qing Luo wiped the perspiration off her forehead and looked sideways at Chi-Chi, whose fur was also damp from the heat. "Which direction did you tell Ah Feng to go?" Chi-Chi opened her mouth and panted as she replied, "Chi-Chi only gave me a rough location." In other words, it was a place near the flame lair. Chi-Chi did not know where Ah Feng was in the blazing lair. Kitty Lee blinked her eyes and used her little head to rub against Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. "Sister, Kitty Lee can help you find him." Yi Qing Luo looked at Kitty Lee. "You've never seen him before. Can you tell what he smells like?" Although Kitty doesn't know the smell of the person Big Sister is looking for, Kitty can smell if there are other people around. Kitty Lee sniffed fiercely, her little nose twitching, a proud look on her face. Yi Qing Luo pinched her little nose. "My cat is the best." The smile on Kitty Lee's face blossomed like a flower. "This place has a very strong smell of blood, but there are no other human scents nearby." Kitty Lee used her nose to accurately report the results of her smell. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the dense forest, which seemed to be enveloped by the heat. It seemed like he had to go deeper. "Kitty, if you sense any danger, immediately avoid it after you remind me. I have a life-saving trump card. Nothing will happen." Yi Qing Luo lowered her head and instructed Kitty Lee. If she were alone, in this strange country, in a dangerous area, even if she couldn't find Ah Feng or discover the true secret of the flame nest, she could also guarantee that she could leave this place unscathed, because she had the teleportation secret technique. However, if she brought Kitty Lee along, she wouldn't be able to leave so quickly. As long as Kitty Lee could rely on her beast man nature to escape from danger, they would be fine. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she looked at Yi Qing Luo for some time, pursing her lips as she gave a low "oh." Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but rubbed her head again. In her heart, Kitty Lee was like a little sister, and she couldn't help but want to love and cherish her. Perhaps it was precisely because Kitty Lee was a beast man, pure and clear, without the slightest bit of impurities, that attracted her. Treat her sincerely. She would be able to treat him sincerely. Caressing Kitty Lee's little head, Yi Qing Luo suddenly thought of the little lass Zilan who had been waiting for her to return home. Ever since Zilan's foot was cured, she had not seen Zilan again. I wonder how that girl Zilan is doing now. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo felt a sharp pain on her arm. She retracted her contemplative gaze and looked at her arm. Kitty Lee bit down on her arm with an angry look on her face. Yi Qing Luo laughed involuntarily. What's wrong? Sister was thinking of someone else when she was stroking Kitty's head. Kitty Lee is not happy. Kitty Lee's eyes widened as she said angrily, was this a fight for favor? Yi Qing Luo laughed loudly as she rubbed her head fiercely. The Beastman race still had their Beastman nature. Chapter 1456. Along the way, based on the duo's agile movements, they didn't leave a single trace in the forest. After walking for about half an hour, Yi Qing Luo roughly calculated the distance that she had walked. Chi-Chi cried out beside her ear, "Master, master!" Chi-Chi felt a strong beckoning. "It's just in front, just in front!" Its wet fur rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's body. Its two furry little claws kept scratching Yi Qing Luo's clothes, as though it was urging Yi Qing Luo to rush towards that direction. To make Chi-Chi develop such a strong feeling, this meant that they had already walked to the deepest part. If they went any further, there might be danger. Yi Qing Luo comforted Chi-Chi as her eyes swept across the surroundings. "Sister, be careful!" Suddenly, Kitty Lee's panicked cry was heard. Immediately, Kitty Lee hugged Yi Qing Luo and pounced on her. The two of them rolled one round on the ground. Pong pong! A surge of profound energy that could cover the heavens and cover the earth directly pressed down. The place where Yi Qing Luo was standing earlier suddenly revealed a huge deep pit. Yi Qing Luo hugged Kitty Lee tightly as she retreated a few steps and looked over in alarm. She saw a jade-green figure slowly walked out. Feng Ling. Yi Qing Luo frowned as a bad premonition arose in her heart. Feng Ling was actually here. Hadn't Dmo Xian forced her to return to the palace? Needless to say, she definitely came with ill intentions. Furthermore, there was a possibility Feng Ling was here for her. Who is she? Kitty Lee frowned as she stared unhappily at the direction of the jade-green figure. Why did she attack us? Yi Qing Luo pulled Kitty Lee behind her as she frowned and looked coldly at Feng Ling. Miss Feng is indeed so bored that her balls hurt. You actually followed me to the blazing flame cave. Feng Ling's lips curled upwards as her beautiful face revealed a faint smile. Because I want to know, what charm does a lady who can make Brother D fall in love with her? Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly as she brushed her long hair. It's very obvious, isn't it? Feng Ling's expression instantly darkened. Her beautiful eyes were dyed with a thin layer of frost. I can't tell which part of you is better than me. Even if I can't win you, the one Xian likes is still me. Yi Qing Luo continued with a smile. Bitch! A green wave of qi flew over. Windlink's eyes shone with extreme anger. Killing intent immediately appeared, and an extremely powerful, profound energy was released from his body. Her sleeves shot out, creating two green waves that surged with intense killing intent. Yi Qing Luo pushed Kitty Lee away and said in a low voice, "You go away first." After that, he unfolded the feather fan in his hand and flipped his body to greet the jade-colored waves. The feather fan stirred up a whirlwind that collided with the jade wave. Yi Qing Luo's peripheral vision saw Kitty Li disappearing into the forest at the side, and she was finally relieved. In the wide sleeves of Feng Ling's robe, there were 2 pieces of jade-green silk and 2 jade-green snakes, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they coiled around Yi Qing Luo. Every time he rolled, then he released his powerful, profound energy. Yi Qing Luo displayed her footwork. The feather fan in her hands kept changing its movements. It completely blocked Feng Ling's attack. Feng Ling's expression suddenly darkened. Her gloomy, cold gaze stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo as the jealousy in her heart grew thicker. "Bitch, I want to see how you are going to escape." Saying that, Feng Ling's flame was completely unleashed. Chapter 1457. The glower flame fan in Yi Qing Luo's hand quickly flipped over her fingertips. Rustle, rustle. The sound of the fan colliding with the satin made an extremely crisp sound. Every time they collided, Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel an extremely strong numbness in her hand that was gripping the glower flame fan tightly. This Feng Ling not only had a way to break all kinds of enchantments, her profound grade was not low either. Yi Qing Luo's brows furrowed slightly as she quickly retreated a few steps, accurately avoiding Feng Ling's satin attack. If she continued to resist, she didn't know if her hand would be crippled. Taking a deep breath, Yi Qing Luo nimbly took a few steps away from Feng Ling. "You do have some ability." Feng Ling's beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent, extremely strong. Yi Qing Luo's face bloomed into a smile as she replied with a straight face, "That's natural. A Xian likes this bit of ability of mine." "You." Feng Ling gritted her teeth and stared fiercely at the girl who snatched away her beloved man. Vixen snatched away her brother D, and dared to show off in front of her. This bitch, she must kill her. Feng Ling's exquisite and beautiful face was hideously distorted. In his eyes, a murderous intent that was as cold as ice appeared. Yi Qing Luo retreated to the side, her charming eyes vigilantly staring at Feng Ling's increasingly hideous face. She pressed the direction of her heart. From the profound jade heart, a scorching heat was separated. Narrowing her eyes, she stared at Feng Ling's chest. Gradually, from Feng Ling's chest, an extremely faint light diffused. Flickering, not too obvious, but Yi Qing Luo could still barely see it clearly. That was a green grade, profound jade heart. A 4th grade, profound jade heart. In the Nirvana realm, a cultivator who possessed a green grade, profound jade heart was already considered a high-level cultivator. Without a doubt, Feng Ling's profound grade was probably between the earth profound and sky profound. Yi Qing Luo's expression became solemn. If it was a head-on confrontation, she might not be Feng Ling's opponent. Since Feng Ling dared to appear here, she must have made sufficient preparations. Humph, now you know fear? Bitch, even if you kneel down and beg me, I will definitely not let you go. The satin in Feng Ling's hands flew out in an ostentatious manner, creating 2 jade waves. Majestic and powerful, profound energy poured down like a torrential river. The surrounding air seemed to be under the control of the blue waves at this moment. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she leapt forward. The glowing flame fan in his hand didn't forget to shoot out 2 terrifying energy waves. The red devouring flame fan transformed into a bewitching red light. On Yi Qing Luo's fingertips, it was like an excited elf. After that, the feathered fan was like a spinning top as it roared ceaselessly in midair, and it swept up a strong gale that collided with the jade wave. In the air, a billowing wave of air suddenly exploded. It was as if it could destroy heaven and earth. In an instant, the trees in the surroundings were smashed into smithereens. Feng Ling's attack did not stop because of this. His figure flashed as he attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's face. Yi Qing Luo was not to be outdone and retaliated. The battle between the 2 women was on the verge of breaking out. Feng Ling's every move was aimed at Yi Qing Luo's vital points. Yi Qing Luo's figure was nimble and her footwork was strange. In the shortest time possible, she could see through Feng Ling's moves and break them. After a round of battle, no one had gained the upper hand. Feng Ling's expression turned uglier and uglier. In the imperial palace, she relied on her grandmother to obtain countless miraculous pills and elixirs. Under her grandmother's guidance and the pills' consolidation. Chapter 1458. In Feng Ling's eyes, Yi Qing Luo was an earth-profound fourth-grade cultivator, a young lass who only knew how to flaunt her prowess. But after exchanging so many blows, she couldn't even touch a corner of Yi Qing Luo's clothes. How could Feng Ling endure this? To Feng Ling, this was a humiliation. A strong glint of anger shone in Feng Ling's eyes. The profound qi around her swelled up. The surrounding air waves formed a whirlpool. It seemed that if she got close, she would be killed by that whirlpool. The two pieces of satin in Feng Ling's sleeves started to attack fiercely. Like two poisonous snakes, they kept slithering and sticking out their scarlet tongues at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo was good at observation. The surrounding terrain had been razed to the ground by Feng Ling. She could only rely on her own accurate calculation to break Feng Ling's attack. Starting from the exchange with Feng Ling, Yi Qing Luo felt that Feng Ling's attack was strong, but it had a fatal weakness. And this weakness, Feng Ling herself was aware of it. She tried her best to hide her weakness. Feng Ling's attack was ferocious, and the lethality was extremely strong. But once she launched an attack, she couldn't defend. In other words, when Feng Ling attacked Yi Qing Luo, and when Yi Qing Luo took the opportunity to fight face-to-face with Feng Ling couldn't defend herself and was easily attacked. Moreover, Yi Qing Luo had completely grasped Feng Ling's attack pattern and rhythm accurately. Wind Chime's attack power and silk speed also went through a rough analysis in his mind. And after that, under Feng Ling's ferocious attack, Yi Qing Luo was almost unscathed and easily evaded. So, in a fight, one had to rely on one's brain. Profound grade couldn't compete. Use your brain. This Feng Ling dared to covet her man, deserved a beating. Yi Qing Luo gave a cold snort as an extremely cold arc appeared between her brows. Miss Feng, no matter how high your profound grade is, no matter how good your starting point is, no matter how close you are to him, Xian is not a man that you can dream of. He only belongs to me. Her words had just ended, and Yi Qing Luo's figure turned into a strange shadow. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared in front of Feng Ling. Yi Qing Luo's words made Feng Ling's eyes flash fiercely. Yi Qing Luo, I think you're tired of living. Waves of jade green qi erupted from Feng Ling's body. They gathered on the satin on her arms like they could topple mountains and overturn seas. Soon after, the surroundings seemed to be engulfed by the billowing blue sea. What's the point of being fast? I will block all your movements. Feng Ling sneered. No matter how fast Yi Qing Luo was, she was still not afraid. The sound of the hurricane colliding with the blue waves could be heard in the air. It sounded like the mournful wails of evil spirits. I'll let you know how fast speed can be fatal. Her clear and sweet laughter was like pearls and jade falling onto a plate. Wind Ling's expression froze, because this voice was very close, right in front of her, behind him. Feng Ling's face was filled with shock. She quickly turned around and wanted to strike with her palm, but Yi Qing Luo's speed was faster than her. The feather fan that flickered with a bewitching red light in Feng Ling's eyes released a dazzling light. A powerful force distorted the air. It went straight for her chest. Ah! A scream came out from Feng Ling's mouth. After that, his entire body shot out like an arrow that had left the bow. Fresh blood bloomed in the air. Chapter 1459. Feng Ling felt a tightness in her chest. A fishy sweetness surged up her throat. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as he was about to prop himself up, his chest suddenly felt heavy, and his body fell heavily to the ground once more. Yi Qing Luo's feet stepped on her heaving chest. By bitch! Feng Ling groaned in pain. Her resentful eyes stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo as she gritted her teeth. You dare! Ah! Yi Qing Luo's feet suddenly exerted force. Feng Ling coughed up a mouthful of blood again. Yi Qing Luo avoided her blood, and when she saw that Feng Ling had finished vomiting, she stepped on her chest. Her condescending appearance was like a bloodthirsty demon from hell. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as her long and narrow eyes outlined an enchanting arc. Miss Feng, don't think too highly of yourself. In my eyes, you're just an ant. She bent over and exerted more force under her feet. He watched as wind chime's face contorted continuously because of the pain. The chill in Yi Qing Luo's eyes deepened. Towards this Feng Ling who dared to covet her man, Yi Qing Luo didn't have any good impression at all, especially since Feng Ling had tried every possible way to kill her. The last time at the back mountain of the West Lawn Square, the incident where the devil class was attacked, Feng Ling might also have something to do with it. Thinking of this, a murderous intent flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Feng Ling felt Yi Qing Luo's murderous intent, and her face immediately revealed a horrified expression. Yi Qing Luo, you can't kill me. I'm from the Imperial Palace, you. The Imperial Palace! These two words made Yi Qing Luo's senses slightly sober up. The killing intent in his eyes also dissipated. Feng Ling was from the Imperial Palace. She was also the granddaughter of the Imperial Palace's granny. Feng Ling was able to make use of the Imperial Palace's old granny to make DMO Xian tremble again and again. Although DMO Xian scoffed at Feng Ling, but at least he did not chase her out of the Imperial Palace, which meant that DMO Xian was rather respectful towards that Imperial Palace's old granny. He killed wind chimes. This also meant that she had become enemies with the Imperial Palace's granny. This also meant that Xian would go against Grandma because of her. The Imperial Palace would be in chaos because of this. At this critical juncture of dealing with the dark forces, the Imperial Palace must not have anything happen that would affect the Imperial Palace. She couldn't burden Xian. His grip on the glowing flame fan gradually loosened. He gradually moved his foot away from Wind Chime's chest. Just at this moment, Feng Ling suddenly stretched out her hands and hugged the leg that Yi Qing Luo was about to move away, and cried out mournfully, "Grandma, save me!" Grandma. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. An indescribable feeling of unease rose from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine. He felt an extremely powerful force coming at him from behind. Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened as her face revealed a shocked expression, trying to evade it. However, Feng Ling was hugging her feet tightly. That power was majestic and powerful. It was as if it could destroy the heavens and the earth and destroy everything in the world. Yi Qing Luo almost couldn't bear it, as she suddenly lay down and pressed on top of Feng Ling. Then he exerted a little force with his arm and changed his position with wind chimes. She down, wind chimes on. There seemed to be a little bit of ambiguous feeling. Feng Ling didn't expect that Yi Qing Luo would use such a shameless method to avoid that powerful attack. When their positions changed, Feng Ling's hands couldn't hug Yi Qing Luo's legs at all. Feng Ling's body was like a puppet being manipulated by Yi Qing Luo as it was placed horizontally in front of Yi Qing Luo. Indeed, that overbearing and extremely oppressive airwave, just as it neared the both of them, a burst of profound qi broke through that airwave and formed a transparent barrier in front of Yi Qing Luo and Feng Ling. Chapter 1460. Boom, boom, boom. Energy and profound qi collided, giving off a deafening explosion. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo felt that Feng Ling whom she used as a shield, was shifted away. Immediately following that, a huge palm pressed downwards. Luckily, Yi Qingluo had already reacted the moment the wind chimes were shifted away. With a somersault, her footwork was displayed. Coincidentally, she avoided that huge palm, but Yi Qingluo was still injured by the huge palm's airwave. The huge palm landed on the ground, and the entire blazing flame lair shook. The airwave and the rising heat in the air kept intertwining. The overbearing energy was like a tide. After Yi Qingluo avoided that huge palm, she immediately rubbed her bruised arm and swiftly retreated a few steps. She raised her eyes and looked through the sky full of gravel and sand. The sky was like a whirlpool of airwave. She could clearly see a figure covered in a black cloak, suspended in midair, not too far away. That figure was extremely short, and even its head was completely covered. Yi Qingluo's first thought when she saw the figure was that this style was like a witch in a fairy tale. It was extremely strange, making one feel disgusted. In that figure's arms was half hugging a petite figure. Blood stained that jade green robe. That was Feng Ling, noble and elegant, like a little dragon girl's exquisite looks and temperament, became extremely comical at this moment. Feng Ling groaned in pain and raised her eyes. When she saw the person who saved her, tears started to flow. Grandma, grandma, grandma. When Yi Qingluo heard this form of address, her heart suddenly stopped. She raised her eyes and stared at that strange cloaked person as her heart felt suffocated. That was Feng Ling's grandma, the Imperial Palace's grandma whom Dmo Xian respected? Looking at that imposing Imperial Palace's grandma, Yi Qingluo's throat turned dry. Recalling the continuous attacks earlier, Yi Qingluo knew that this Imperial Palace's grandma was absolutely a sky, mystic overlord or above. Even if she relied on her brain, it would be hard for her to exchange more than 3 moves with Imperial Palace's grandma. Imperial Palace's grandma came to the blazing flame lair, apparently for Feng Ling, and she had just tortured Feng Ling to the brink of death. How could Imperial Palace's grandma let her off? This was bad. Yi Qingluo had not expected that the Imperial Palace's granny would actually take action personally. Grandma, whoa, little Ling is going to die. She's going to be beaten to death. When Feng Ling saw that she had her grandmother as her backing, she immediately felt confident. The Imperial Palace's grandma gently stroked Feng Ling's head, then raised her eyes and looked down at the young girl below. The moment their gazes met, Yi Qingluo suddenly felt that her neck was being strangled by something cold. A suffocating feeling engulfed his entire body. Yi Qingluo clenched her fists tightly, forcing herself not to reveal the slightest bit of stage fright. However, his heart was beating like a drum. This old woman from the Imperial Palace was indeed powerful to the extent that she was no match for her. If she fought with the Imperial Palace's old granny, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. No matter what, he had to think of a way to escape first. Taking a deep breath, Yi Qingluo's gaze roamed around, trying to search for the direction of Kitty Li. The battle with Windchime just now was earth-shattering. The forest that could hide in the area was turned upside down by wind chimes. He didn't know where Kitty Li was hiding. Chapter 1461. Yi Qingluo's face instantly turned pale. She raised her eyes abruptly and looked towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. She saw Imperial Palace's granny waving her black cloak, and a slender figure was grabbed by the neck by Imperial Palace's granny's arm, hanging in midair. That green and white uniform was already stained with blood. Black tail drooped down weakly. Yi Qingluo's pupils suddenly contracted. Kitty! When did Imperial Palace's granny? When did she catch Kitty Li? Yi Qingluo's entire body was trembling slightly as an eerie chill arose in her eyes. What do you want? Imperial Palace's granny's sinister laughter was ear-piercing. She took a look at Kitty Li in her hands, and then looked at Feng Ling in her arms. The gaze under the cloak was extremely icy cold. "You beat my granddaughter into such a state, and you still ask me what I want." Imperial Palace's Granny's body slowly landed on the ground. She casually threw Kitty Lee behind her. Yi Ching Luo followed closely, trying to catch Kitty Lee. But she saw Kitty Lee's body in midair seem to have collided into something as it suddenly froze in midair. Following that, she heard Kitty Lee's miserable shriek. Yi Ching Luo couldn't see it with her naked eye, but she could tell from Kitty Lee's struggling look. Imperial Palace's Granny used profound qi to create an array to trap Kitty Lee. Now Kitty Lee was trapped in that array, and her 4 limbs were all entangled by an invisible profound qi, totally unable to move. Yi Ching Luo stopped in her tracks. Her vigilant eyes stared fiercely at Imperial Palace's Granny. Unable to decode that array, there was a possibility that even she would be sucked into that array forcefully. "Little girl, you're so young, yet you're so arrogant. Have you ever heard of the saying that there's always someone better out there?" The Imperial Palace's Granny narrowed her cold eyes and gently placed Feng Ling on the ground. She enunciated each word slowly and unhurriedly. Imperceptibly, she emitted a strong, imposing aura, not angry at all. Imperial Palace's Granny fed Feng Ling a medicinal pill and immediately looked towards Yi Ching Luo. Under the cloak, Yi Ching Luo could only see that pair of venomous eyes. "You snatched away my grandson-in-law and injured my obedient granddaughter. Little girl, tell me, how should I punish you?" Imperial Palace's Granny spoke in contempt, totally disregarding Yi Ching Luo. Yi Ching Luo pursed her pink lips tightly as she stared vigilantly at the Imperial Palace's old Granny. Looking at Feng Ling's smug gaze, her heart became heavier. Kitty Lee was caught. It was impossible for her to abandon Kitty Lee and use teleportation to escape. "Grandma, kill her for me. Kill this vixen who stole Brother D away. Big Brother D clearly only has me in his heart. It's her. It's this vixen that bewitched Big Brother D's mind." Feng Ling held onto her chest as she leaned against a huge rock in a sorry state, gritting her teeth as she stared at Yi Ching Luo. The hatred in her voice and the pained frown on her face as she spoke made the chill in the depths of the Imperial Palace's grandma's eyes even more intense. Imperial Palace's grandma gently caressed Feng Ling's head as her voice became warmer. "Little Ling, Grandma will uphold justice for you." Yi Ching Luo sneered. "Young Miss Feng really knows how to dream. If Ah Xian really likes you, he would have been together with you long ago. Would there still be a need for me to appear? Even a 5-year-old child wouldn't do something like you. Do you think Ah Xian would like a woman like you?" Feng Ling was so angry that she started to pant heavily. Suddenly her chest felt stuffy, and with a wah, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1462. Imperial Palace's Granny was completely infuriated. She didn't put Yi Ching Luo in her eyes at all. But this little slut dared to humiliate her granddaughter in front of her. Imperial Palace's Granny's eyes sunk as she comforted Feng Ling softly and immediately stood up. "What a sharp-tongued slut! Granny wants to see to what extent can you be unyielding?" Just as she finished her words, Imperial Palace's Granny leaped. The wide black cloak was like a bat spreading its wings. The powerful, profound qi set off thousands of huge waves as it brutally crashed towards Yi Ching Luo's face. Yi Ching Luo suppressed the shock in her heart as her fingers clasped the feather fan tightly as her figure swiftly moved backwards. She knew that Imperial Palace's Granny's profound grade wasn't low, but she didn't expect that the power released by Imperial Palace's Granny was even more terrifying than before. And it was obvious that Imperial Palace's Granny had not used her full strength. This old woman, profound grade was definitely. It was already higher than what she knew. Yi Ching Luo's cold eyes narrowed slightly as she released her perception to the maximum, vigilantly paying attention to Imperial Palace's Granny's attack. "Lass Luo, How did you provoke such a powerful opponent? Old Man Tsang's voice suddenly rang in her mind. Yi Qing Luo avoided Imperial Palace's granny's attack as she meditated. Old Man Tsang, don't ask the reason first. Can thunderclap arts hit her? I advise you, don't use thunderclap arts in front of this old woman. Old Man Tsang stopped her. If she recognizes that you have the thunderclap arts manual, she will definitely know the whereabouts of the Azure Dew Bracelet. Your current ability is not enough to protect the Azure Dew Bracelet. It's best to keep a low profile. Just as he was speaking, Yi Qing Luo's speed slowed down for a moment. The huge rock, which was lifted up by the strong wind, smashed hard on Yi Qing Luo's back. Yi Qing Luo groaned and immediately increased her speed to avoid Imperial Palace's granny's relentless attack. Lass, hurry and run now. Go back to Ghost Marshal first. If he's there, that old woman won't dare to hurt you. Old Man Tsang said anxiously. No, Kitty is still in her hands. Yi Qing Luo took a look at Kitty Li, who was suspended in midair, and her eyes were filled with frost. You'd better think of a reliable way to deal with me. From Old Man Tsang's tone, it was obvious that he was no stranger to the Imperial Palace's granny. Old Man Tsang was 1,000-year-old spirit body, and yet there was someone whom he could recognize who might have lived for thousands of years. It was no wonder that she had nowhere to hide in front of the Imperial Palace's granny. The reason why he was able to avoid Granny's attack was because the granny of the Imperial Palace was playing a cat and mouse game. Yi Qing Luo didn't want to admit that she had always played the role of a cat, but today she had become a mouse. However, she was still glad that the Imperial Palace's grandma was in the mood to kill her with one palm strike. Strength, that was the way to survive. In the end, she was still too weak. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists tightly. She must work hard to become stronger. He was strong enough to protect the people around him. She gritted her teeth and whispered in her heart, Kitty, wait for me. He couldn't go head-on against the Imperial Palace's granny. She must take the opportunity to rescue Kitty Li. Old Man Tsang didn't reply for a long time. Perhaps he was thinking about how to deal with this crisis. Yi Qing Luo didn't have time to wait for Old Man Tsang's reply. Chapter 1463. Oh no! Yi Qing Luo cried out in her heart. Her fingertips fumbled around the profound phoenix ring and took out a ring. She wore the ring on her finger and activated her profound qi to cover her entire body. Bam, 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 like 10,000 horses galloping, or like the sound of the raging waves, it shook the earth and the mountains. Everything in the surroundings seemed to be wrapped up by this powerful qi. The ground kept shaking. Profound qi bombarded the surrounding ground, trees, bushes, broken branches, were all uprooted from the ground. This piece of land had been leveled to flat ground. Little vixen. Imperial Palace's granny hugged Feng Ling tightly in her arms, and when she looked at Feng Ling, the warmth in her eyes became gentler. Little Ling, Granny has already avenged you. After you have recovered, Granny will let Mo Xian, that fellow, marry you. Feng Ling looked behind Granny, at Yi Qing Luo, who was shrouded in that whirlpool, who had probably been smashed into pieces, and her face revealed a complacent smile. Thank you, Granny. But the next moment she lowered her head in grievance. But, Granny, will Brother D blame me? What if he doesn't want to marry me? Imperial Palace's granny rubbed Feng Ling's head intimately. Don't worry. Mo Xian, that fellow values filial piety the most. As long as Granny says it, he will not dare to defy Granny's orders. Feng Ling then smiled like a flower. But her smile did not last for long, because her gaze was staring at the back of Imperial Palace's granny in astonishment and shock. Her pupils gradually widened. Feng Ling wanted to call Granny, but her throat seemed to be choked by something, unable to make any sound. Imperial Palace's granny sensed something and immediately turned her head to look behind. A sliver of astonishment instantly surfaced in her malicious eyes, only to see that the profound qi whirlpool was gradually dispersed by a bewitching red glow. Gravel flew, air billowed. That bewitching red glow turned into a ball shape and slowly spread out. A slender figure stood in midair. Behind her stood a huge white tiger sacred beast, and on the sacred beast's back laid Kitty Lee, who was originally restrained by Imperial Palace's granny with an array. What was going on? A cold glint flashed across Granny's sinister eyes. Her palm strike just now was nearly capable of destroying heaven and earth. Everything around them had been razed to the ground. She actually didn't kill Yi Qing Luo and even let her save that little wild cat? The Imperial Palace's Granny's face darkened. Yi Qing Luo stood in the middle of the bewitching red light ball as her green and white uniform fluttered in the wind. 3,000 strands of black hair flew in the wind. At this moment, her beautiful face was even more dazzling. It was as if everything in the world, except for her, had lost its luster. Slowly the light dissipated. The light merged into Yi Qing Luo's fingertip, onto that ordinary-looking ring. Yi Qing Luo looked down at the Imperial Palace's old granny and Feng Ling. The cold intent in her eyes was like a sharp blade. Her aura was fully unleashed as she stared unblinkingly at the Imperial Palace's old granny, saying word by word, "Dmo Xian will only belong to me, Yi Qing Luo for all eternity. No matter who it is, no one can erase this fact." The azure Du Ring's energy blended with Yi Qing Luo's profound grade. Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel that the profound jade heart in her chest was giving off a resonating feeling. Imperial Palace's old granny's expression was gloomy, only feeling a burning sensation on her face. This little slut, was she publicly slapping her face? Granny. Feng Ling looked at Yi Qing Luo in this state, as an inexplicable feeling of fear arose in her heart. Chapter 1464. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways and saw the pale-faced Kitty Lee, who was lying on Chi-Chi's body, blinking her eyes as she said softly, "Kitty, take a rest. Sister will bring you back immediately." Kitty Lee opened her mouth and breathed out silently from her pale lips. Apparently, her injury was extremely serious. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted as she gently stroked Kitty Lee's soft hair. "Don't worry, close your eyes and sleep." Following that, she patted Chi-Chi's head. Chi-Chi brought Kitty Lee and speedily left Yi Qing Luo's back. With Chi-Chi protecting Kitty Lee, Yi Qing Luo didn't need to worry for the time being. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked at the Imperial Palace's old granny, whose eyes were filled with murderous intent. She clenched the glower flame fan in her hands tightly. "Lass Luo, you're crazy." Old man San's anxious voice rang in her mind. "Do you know what you're doing now? Didn't I tell you before that you can only maintain your earth profound fourth grade ability and not use the power of the god relic? The last time when Yi Qing Luo lost control, if it wasn't for Dmo Xian's presence, she really didn't know who could stop her. Once Yi Qing Luo used the power of the god relic, causing her to lose control again, the consequences were unimaginable. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips as her expression congealed. "I can't think of any other way." Earlier, it wasn't that she couldn't escape from the Imperial Palace's old granny's attack, but if she were to escape, Kitty Lee, who was trapped in the array, would also be strangled to death by that burst of energy. At the critical moment, Yi Qing Luo could only think of using the azure Du Ring's power to release the barrier which belonged to the god relic. The Imperial Palace's old granny had treated herself too well. After that attack, all her thoughts were placed on Feng Ling. Yi Qing Luo also took this opportunity to let Chi-Chi transform into her battle form and immediately displayed her teleportation, using the azure Du Ring's power to forcefully break the Imperial Palace's old granny's array and save Kitty Lee. She knew that after using the azure Du Ring's power, that inexplicable profound Yin Qi might possibly cause her to lose control again. But she had no other way. No matter what, she couldn't just watch Kitty Lee get into trouble. She took a deep breath and looked up at the Imperial Palace's grandma. She clenched her fists and said, "Old man Song, if I really lose control and hurt the people I care about, then use your power to stop me." "Girl Luo." Old man Song stomped his feet anxiously in the azure dew bracelet. He couldn't be anxious in his heart and was annoyed at himself for not being able to break through the last stage of cultivation. He just needed to break through the last stage of cultivation. He would be able to use his spiritual body to appear by Yi Qing Luo's side to help her. Yi Qing Luo ignored Old Man Song's dissuasion. She could not avoid this battle at all. Granny from the Imperial Palace would not give her a chance to escape. "Little Vixen!" An icy glint flashed across the Imperial Palace's Granny's eyes. At this moment, Imperial Palace's Granny was filled with murderous intent towards Yi Qing Luo. This little vixen had seduced her most promising Mo Xian. She even hurt her most precious granddaughter. Furthermore, this little vixen didn't look simple at all. If they didn't get rid of it, they would definitely cause chaos in the Imperial Palace in the future. She must kill her. She didn't believe that Mo Xian, that fellow, would blame her for a shameless little vixen. With this thought in mind, Imperial Palace's Granny's eerie eyes were filled with a biting, cold, murderous intent. Immediately following that, Imperial Palace's Granny's figure flashed, and like a huge bat, she leapt into the sky. But a moment later, she had already arrived in front of Yi Qing Luo. The extreme, cold, murderous intent made Yi Qing Luo's back turn cold. Chapter 14:65. Yi Qing Luo was on high alert as she immediately opened her glower flame fan and rolled up a hurricane to block in front of her. Following that, her body sunk downwards, and using her footwork, she speedily got out of the attack range of the Imperial Palace's Granny. The hurricane shone with a demonic red glow. The surrounding air was also intertwined under the hurricane's rotation. It directly brought up an earth-shattering, billowing air wave. Boom! The hurricane and the Imperial Palace's Granny's attack collided. The surrounding airwave was surging. Even though Yi Qing Luo got out of the attack range, her arm was still cut by the airwave. Fresh blood instantly gushed out. Yi Qing Luo's figure retreated, more than 10 meters away. "Sister!" Kitty Li laid on Chi-Chi's back as she called out to Yi Qing Luo weakly. Yi Qing Luo stabilized herself as her eyes stared coldly at the Imperial Palace's Granny, who was laughing sinisterly with a solemn look on her face. She didn't have any extra time to check on her injury. The Imperial Palace's Granny's next attack was directed towards Yi Qing Luo. He did not show any mercy at all. The Imperial Palace's Granny's attack was swift and violent, bringing up airwaves which seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. Everywhere they passed, the ground split apart and revealed a long chasm. Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth as she merged the divine relic with her own energy and used all her skills to avoid the Imperial Palace's Granny's attack. And her mind kept analyzing the Imperial Palace's Granny's attack to counter it. Only the difference in profound grade was not just to use the divine relic to turn defeat into victory. Yi Qing Luo's evasion and finding a chance to counterattack the Imperial Palace's Granny. In the Imperial Palace's Granny's eyes, it was simply a struggle before death. A small earth, profound cultivator, even if she could control the divine relic's power. So what? The owner of the divine relic was a waste. How could she hope for the divine relic to turn the waste into a genius? But after a few moves, Yi Qing Luo's body was already covered with wounds. Her green and white uniform had long been dyed red. Even her petite figure was on the verge of collapsing. Fresh blood slowly dripped down along her body. Yi Qing Luo wiped the blood off her lips as she looked coldly at the Imperial Palace's Granny without any intention of giving in. Under the billowing airwaves, if one looked closely, indistinctly, in Yi Qing Luo's pair of enchanting eyes, a devilish red glow was faintly appearing. Imperial Palace's Granny swept a contemptuous glance at Yi Qing Luo and turned her head to look at Fengling. "Xiaoling, are you satisfied?" Yi Qing Luo who was drenched in blood, looked as if her injuries were no lighter than Fengling's. Windling was overjoyed. However, when Fengling saw the face that was still beautiful even though it was stained with blood, a hint of jealousy flashed in her eyes. "Granny, destroy that face of hers. Let's see what she uses to seduce the other ghosts in the underworld." "All right, Granny will destroy her face now." Granny of the Imperial Palace agreed to Fengling's request lovingly. Following that, he turned around and looked at Yi Qingluo, who was on the verge of collapsing, as though he was an evil spirit seeking for her life. His eyes were filled with sinister viciousness. His cloak and black robe fluttered. A withered, twig-like hand reached out from the cloak. The terrifying fingers flashed, revealing a sharp fingernail on the 5 fingers. It was like a sharp blade shining with a cold light. Swoosh! A piercing sound was heard as Imperial Palace's Granny's figure approached Yi Qingluo's direction, and it brought along a surge of overbearing profound qi, sweeping over. Yi Qingluo's footwork was immediately displayed, but no matter how she avoided, Imperial Palace's Granny's figure was able to follow her like a shadow. Chapter 1466 F***K. Yi Qingluo couldn't help but cursed. That was way too brutal, wasn't it? She actually wanted to ruin her face. She couldn't avoid it, so she could only retaliate. Yi Qingluo clenched her teeth tightly, enduring the pain in her arm as she clenched the glower flame fan tightly. A scorching feeling arose from the azure dew ring. Yi Qingluo shut her eyes as she activated her profound jade heart's profound qi, merging it with the power of the god relic. She faced the Imperial Palace's Granny as the glower flame fan in her hand spun rapidly on her fingertips. Suddenly, an explosive red light burst out from between his palms. She used one hand to split the Imperial Palace's Granny's outstretched hand. The other hand spun the glower flame fan even faster, directly entering the Imperial Palace's Granny's chest. Bam, bam, bam. A deafening sound reverberated as the two forces collided. A terrifying and overbearing aura spread wildly in all directions. The ground was filled with sand and dust. The violent energy once again stirred up everything in the surroundings. The heat wave from the flame nest was like a surging sea of fire, howling madly. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was extremely clear at this moment. Bam! Another loud sound was heard. The Imperial Palace's Granny retreated a few steps as both her feet were stuck into the ground, stabilizing her body. Her withered, wood-like hand pressed against her heart. Her cold eyes were filled with evil as she looked down at her own chest. Blood seeped out from the gaps of her withered wood fingers. Damn it! That little slut, how dare! The Imperial Palace's Granny's venomous and cold voice made one shudder, whereas on the other side, Yi Qingluo gave a muffled moan as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body flew out stiffly. "Sister!" Kitty Lee's hoarse voice cried out Yi Qingluo's name in terror. At the same time, a furry body caught her firmly. It was Chi-Chi's smell. Yi Qingluo laid on Chi-Chi's body as she heard Kitty Lee's cries. Her breathing was heavy as her consciousness started to drift off. Intense pain spread throughout her internal organs, especially the pain in her arm, which made it even more unbearable. The moment she blocked the Imperial Palace's Granny, the Imperial Palace's Granny forcibly broke the bones in her left arm. Big sister, big sister. Kitty Lee's sobbing voice resounded in her ears. Faintly, Yi Qingluo seemed to have heard a familiar voice ringing beside her ears. It seemed to be very close. Qingluo, Yi Qingluo, Madam Qingluo. Different voices called out to her one after another. Vaguely, he could hear Kitty Lee sobbing and saying something. However, the voice was extremely faint, and she could not hear it clearly. The only thing he could be sure of was someone was calling her. Long Yunjian, Yen Shaoyi? Tong Ziqing? Or was it everyone in Devil Class? Those voices were so familiar, but Yi Qing Luo didn't have the energy to respond. No, she could not fall. Kitty Li and Chi Chi were still by her side. If she fell, the Imperial Palace Granny would not let them go. She could not fall. Her brothers were still waiting for her to return. Also, if DMO Xian knew that she had hurt him so badly, he would definitely feel heartache. He could not admit defeat, just like that. She had to stand up. In the bottom of her heart, a conviction kept on surging. Yi Qing Luo could feel that her own blood was constantly oozing out. An indescribable feeling near her heart, in the position of that profound jade heart, kept on surging. Her slender fingers trembled slightly. Following that, Chapter 1467. I, Beastman Clan, Cat Beast Clan Cat King's daughter, Li Mao, swear on the Cat Beast Clan's cat blood to set up a life and death contract with Master Yi Qing Luo. I will follow Master Yi Qing Luo for eternity. Li Mao's voice rang clearly in her ears. Yi Qing Luo frowned. What did this mean? What life and death contract? Before Yi Qing Luo had time to think carefully, her lower jaw was lifted and her mouth seemed to be stuffed with some liquid. A fishy sweet taste filled her mouth. Following that, she felt a warm force pressing on her forehead. The next moment, Yi Qing Luo felt a white light flashing in her head. Her entire body was covered by a scorching feeling. She could even feel the tiny blood vessels in her body, as well as the flow of blood. A mysterious force pervaded her limbs and bones that seemed like profound qi, but also seemed like heaven and earth's spiritual qi. It kept roaming around in her body. But a moment later, the pain in Yi Qing Luo's body disappeared. Even the blood which was gushing out from her wounds stopped flowing. Gra Granny. Wind chimes stared in disbelief at the young woman who lay on the white tiger's sacred beast's back and shone with a bewitching red light. She stuttered and called out to the granny of the Imperial Palace. That little wildcat is actually the Beastman Clan's cat princess. Imperial Palace's granny's cold gaze stared coldly at the two of them who were in the midst of the contract, as a chilly glint appeared in her eyes. What Beastman Clan? Granny, is she going to advance again? Feng Ling didn't understand the meaning of Imperial Palace's granny's words. She only knew that she sensed an extremely strong energy from Yi Qing Luo. Originally, Yi Qing Luo's profound grade, to her, was not able to pose any threat to her. But now, the surge of energy from Yi Qing Luo's body made Feng Ling fearful. Imperial Palace's granny squinted her sinister cold eyes as she felt blood oozing out from her palms, which made her eyes turn even colder. This little slut was really not a simple character. This was the first time she was injured by such a young lass. Even the cat princess, in order to save this little slut, was willing to sign a life and death contract with her. If he didn't get rid of it, there would be future troubles. A murderous aura shot out from the Imperial Palace's granny's eyes. She clenched her fists and was about to rush towards the young girl who was still accepting the contract. Then she heard wind chimes cry out in surprise, "Grandma, look, what is that?" Granny of the Imperial Palace looked in the direction Feng Ling was pointing. He saw Yi Qing Luo's body, unknowingly enveloped by a layer of extremely gloomy black qi. That black qi was obviously evil qi. Wisps of evil qi kept twining around Yi Qing Luo's body, as though it was trying to probe into her body. However, before he could even get close, Yi Qing Luo's surrounding rays of red light blocked that black qi, directly separating it. Granny of the Imperial Palace frowned and looked at the black gas with deep meaning in her eyes. After a while, the black gas was completely devoured by the red light. At the same time, the airwaves surrounding Yi Qing Luo started to churn rapidly. Bang! An extremely ferocious, profound energy instantly dispersed all the whirlpools and hurricanes in the surroundings. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. A pair of enchanting eyes shot out a piercingly cold glint, turning into a sharp blade as it flew towards the direction of Imperial Palace's granny. Imperial Palace's granny's pupils constricted as she scooped up Fengling and swiftly evaded. Chapter 1468. Yiqing Luo floated in the air. A burst of fierce, profound qi lingered around her body. Her green and white uniform had been dyed red, like a blooming, bloodthirsty poppy, enchanting and captivating. Promoted to Earth Profound, 5th grade. Promoted to Earth Profound, 6th grade. Promoted. Yiqing Luo's surrounding aura rose rapidly. That grandparent and granddaughter duo were stunned. When a cultivator was promoting, they would form a self-protection barrier. No one could break through the barrier and attack the cultivator who was promoting. Even the Imperial Palace's granny was unable to attack Yiqing Luo at this time. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes were filled with evil coldness. Even she couldn't believe her own eyes. After living for so long, she had never seen a person who could promote so quickly. Who exactly was this little bitch? Why did she have such terrifying power? Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that her body was filled with extremely strong, profound qi, one grade after another, surging violently in her body. Finally, a burst of strong, profound qi rushed straight to the profound jade heart. The blood in her body seemed to be boiling. The profound qi gradually stopped. Promotion stopped. Earth Profound, 9th grade. And it was the peak of Earth Profound, 9th grade. She was just short of an opportunity to promote directly to Sky Profound Realm. This, she was absolutely a pervert. Imperial Palace's granny could no longer conceal her shock. One must know how difficult it was to promote a grade in the Earth Profound Realm. Even Fengling. She had been using high-grade medicinal pills and various medicinal herbs since young, and now Fengling was only in the Earth Profound 7th grade. If Fengling wanted to promote a grade, she would need to use at least 100,000 gold coins worth of medicinal pills to barely guarantee that Fengling would be promoted within a year. But Yiqing Luo actually promoted 5 grades in a row at this moment. Imperial Palace's granny was extremely vexed at this moment. Why didn't she kill Yiqing Luo directly? Yiqing Luo clenched her fists, feeling the profound qi in her body merging with her body, converging. The strong aura in her body made her feel extremely comfortable. Lass Luo, you've really picked up a treasure. Old Man Song's tense voice came from her mind. He seemed to have been nervous for a long time. At this time, his voice was a little hoarse. This old man forgot that you have a beast man kitten by your side. Yiqing Luo turned her head and looked at the unconscious kitty, Li, who was lying on top of Chi-Chi. What's going on? She couldn't quite remember what had happened just now. Old Man Song let out a long sigh of relief. Li Mao is the princess of the Cat-Beast clan. She has the purest blood of the Cat-Beast clan. She signed a life and death contract with you, and you received the bloodline inheritance of the Cat-Beast clan. Regarding the bloodline inheritance, Yiqing Luo had heard Old Man Song mention it before. Kitty actually signed a life and death contract with him. Once this contract was signed, they would be inseparable for all eternity. Furthermore, Kitty, Li was the princess of the Cat-Beast clan. This also meant that she would definitely go back and inherit the Cat-Beast clan in the future. Was it really okay to form a contract with her like this? I really don't know why you're so lucky. Old Man Song had a helpless tone as he lightly sighed. You were actually able to trigger the fusion of the divine tool and the profound jade heart before you fainted. In addition, Kitty Li took the initiative to swear a blood oath, which allowed you to seize the opportunity to advance. This kind of advancement method, it required the right conditions and people. Coincidentally, Yiqing Luo had all of them. There was no one else with this kind of luck. Chapter 1469. she was able to advance. It was her brothers who awakened her willpower. It was them who gave her the courage to never admit defeat. So she was able to use her willpower to activate the god relic. Looking at the pale-faced Kitty Lee, Yi Qing Luo's gaze gradually turned gentle. She moved her lips lightly and said silently, "Kitty, thank you. Little slut, Granny wants to see how powerful you are after inheriting the bloodline inheritance." Imperial Palace's Granny didn't give Yi Qing Luo any chance to merge her powers. If this little slut wasn't eliminated soon, she would be a huge threat to her. This kind of pervert was too scary. She wanted to nip Yi Qing Luo in the bud. Imperial Palace's Granny's hoarse and sharp voice was extremely ear-piercing. The next moment, she had already rolled up a terrifying profound chi and attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's face. However, her attack had actually landed on thin air. Following Yi Qing Luo's breath, Imperial Palace's Granny turned her head. She saw Yi Qing Luo looking at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. That pair of long and narrow eyes were filled with ridicule and coldness. Imperial Palace's Granny's expression suddenly turned cold as her gloomy eyes revealed a strong murderous intent. This little slut dared to belittle her. She had merely advanced to Earth Profound, 9th grade. Did she really treat herself as an expert? Imperial Palace's Granny was furious as her figure flashed and immediately attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. This time, Imperial Palace's Granny was watching Yi Qing Luo's actions closely, but she saw that blood-red robe was like a jumping flame as it flashed past her eyes. Strong, profound chi revolved around her body, as though it was driving the heaven and earth's spiritual chi. Every move was so nimble that no one could catch up to it. This was like a cat. That's right, it was a cat. After inheriting the bloodline inheritance of the cat race, Yi Qing Luo herself would also obtain the power of the cat race. Of course, this didn't mean that Yi Qing Luo could be like Kitty Lee, using her hands as cat claws, but she had the characteristics of a cat. For example, the body's nimbleness and flexibility. For example, the sense of the surrounding environment and the acute sense of smell, etc. As long as it was a cat's characteristic, it had already integrated into Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo's speed was originally extremely fast. Coupled with that set of footwork, it was even harder to fathom. Now that she had inherited the cat beast's bloodline, her speed was almost comparable to lightning. Even the Imperial Palace's old Granny couldn't follow her like she used to. The Imperial Palace's Granny's eyes were sinister as she suddenly yelled, "Little bitch, if you dare to dodge again, I'll strangle this brat to death right now." Yi Qing Luo was stunned as her brows creased. The Imperial Palace's Granny extended her withered, wood-like fingers to her side. Suddenly, an extremely strong suction force filled the entire space. In the next instant, a figure sprang up from the rubble and trees. It landed steadily on the arm of the Imperial Palace. The young man was dressed in black, and his body was covered in scratches from the rubble and trees. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted abruptly. Wind. It was Ah Feng. Why was he here? And he was captured by the Imperial Palace's Granny? Yi. Miss Yi. Ah Feng spat out the 3 words with difficulty. His throat was forcefully pinched by the Imperial Palace's Granny. His face turned pale, and he couldn't make any sound. Chapter 1470. Imperial Palace's Granny saw Yi Qing Luo's expression, and her malicious eyes revealed a delighted smile. This kid is obviously a lackey of the Imperial Palace, but he dares to side with an outsider like you. The Imperial Palace's Granny sneered contemptuously. Granny, even if I kill him, it's to rid the Imperial Palace of a disloyal lackey. Looking at the Imperial Palace's Granny's tightening fingers, Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth tightly. He's listening to Ah Xian's instructions and listening to my orders. What kind of disloyalty is that? Are you showing off in front of Grandma? That brat Mo Xian treats you so well that he even sent the imperial palace's lackeys to you? Grandma narrowed her eyes. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists tightly and remained silent. The imperial palace's grandma looked at the dying Ah Feng with disdain and snorted. You're quite loyal. It's not impossible for you to save this brat. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased as she looked at her vigilantly. The imperial palace's granny sneered and turned to look at Feng Ling. Little Ling, come here. Wind Chimes, who had taken the medicinal pill from the granny in the imperial palace and recovered most of her body, got up from the ground and jogged to the granny in the imperial palace. Imperial Palace's old granny pushed Feng Ling towards Yi Qing Luo. If you don't dodge or evade, don't defend or defend, and receive 3 strikes from Xiaoling, I will make the decision to give this fellow to you. Delight shone in Windlink's eyes. Imperial Palace granny, Ah Feng said with difficulty. You killed subordinate. Shut up! She clenched her hand and stopped Ah Feng. You don't have the right to speak here. Sure. Yi Qing Luo looked coldly at the imperial palace's granny's hand. I can agree to your request, but you must use your reputation as the imperial palace's granny to guarantee that you will spare Win's life. The imperial palace's granny snorted coldly. Do you have the right to negotiate with me? Then, let's have a life and death struggle. Yi Qing Luo's tone was cold and her eyes were filled with killing intent. Granny's face darkened. This little slut has quite a backbone. She snorted coldly. Fine, I'll agree to your request. Then, she loosened her grip on Ah Feng's neck. Ah Feng opened his mouth, wanting to dissuade Yi Qing Luo, but after a long period of suffocation, he had no energy to speak. Little Ling, go. Granny of the imperial palace said faintly. Feng Ling's eyes were filled with joy and excitement as she jealously stared at Yi Qing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face, gritting her teeth as she laughed. Yi Qing Luo, you have such a date too! Just as she finished her words, Feng Ling's sleeves fluttered and 2 pieces of jade green satin went straight towards Yi Qing Luo's chest. Bang! There was a loud noise. Yi Qing Luo's body was struck by that satin and flew backwards. There was a sharp pain in her chest. Yi Qing Luo stabilized her body, raised her eyes, and said calmly, "The first move!" Wind Chime scowled and her gaze was fierce. Her ethereal face had long since become twisted and savage. All right, look at the second move. Before she could make a move, Granny of the Imperial Palace stopped Feng Ling. She stared at Yi Qing Luo with interest. She had not expected Yi Qing Luo to comply with the request and forcefully take on Feng Ling's attack. She took another look at Ah Feng, who was struggling to get up. Little slut, are you sure you want to sacrifice yourself to save his dog life? Granny of the Imperial Palace felt that it was ridiculous. He was just a secret guard. Was it worth Yi Qing Luo to use her life to exchange for him? Or was it that Yi Qing Luo had the confidence that she could survive within 3 moves from Feng Ling? Even if Yi Qing Luo could survive, she would not let Yi Qing Luo leave this place alive. But Chapter 1471. Little slut, if it wasn't for him, my precious granddaughter wouldn't be able to come here to block you. Your whereabouts are all betrayed by him. Imperial Palace's granny squinted her malicious eyes as she sneered sinisterly. Yi Qing Luo frowned as her gaze swept past Wind, who had fallen beside Imperial Palace's granny's feet. Wind moved his lips, but was unable to make a sound. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's silence, Imperial Palace's granny's eyes overflowed with ridicule. Before she opened her mouth, she heard Yi Qing Luo's cold voice. Imperial Palace's granny, don't you feel that your method of sowing discord is too childish? Imperial Palace's granny's complacent smile froze on her lips as her eyes sunk. As the person in charge of the Imperial Palace, I am very clear about the whereabouts of the Imperial Palace's secret guards. Mo Xian placed this lad by your side, which means that no matter where you go, as the person in charge of the Imperial Palace, he will know your whereabouts clearly." Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed as something seemed to have pierced her heart fiercely. Yi Qing Luo didn't doubt the authenticity of Imperial Palace's granny's words. DMO Xian was indeed able to accurately pinpoint the exact location she was at. Previously, she thought it was because of the profound Phoenix Ring and profound Dragon Ring. Now it seemed that it was because Wind had been following her in the dark. Imperial Palace's granny was trying to provoke her trust towards Wind, and to provoke her trust towards DMO Xian. Yi Qing Luo scoffed, "So what?" Imperial Palace's granny frowned as she didn't expect Yi Qing Luo's heart to be so firm. "Imperial Palace's granny, you're indeed old. I'm sick of your tricks 10 years ago." Yi Qing Luo gave Imperial Palace's granny a disdainful glance. "The reason why I'm here is to bring Wind away. If you want me to take 3 strikes, be quick and don't waste time." Fengling's first strike wasn't soft at all. Her chest was still trembling in pain. If she continued to waste time with Imperial Palace's granny, she probably wouldn't be able to take Fengling's second strike. Imperial Palace's granny's eyes darkened as she sneered. "Granny, I want to see how unyielding you are." She stopped speaking and looked at wind chimes beside her. "Young Ling, second move." Fengling's face was ferocious, and her eyes were filled with intense hatred. She flipped her hands, and the silk cloth billowed in her palms. After that, a strand of powerful, profound energy shot out from within his body. Fengling's face was filled with viciousness as she sneered and directed all her energy towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. The horrifying profound qi was like a monstrous wave that engulfed Yi Qing Luo in a split second. Fengling's second move was extremely ruthless. Compared to the power of the first move, it was many times stronger. The Imperial Palace's granny looked at her granddaughter's profound rank with satisfaction, as well as that terrifying power, and nodded in satisfaction. Feeling this powerful force, he felt the overwhelming force corroding him. Yi Qing Luo wasn't flustered or fearful at all. This was especially so when he saw how the old woman in the Imperial Palace looked at wind chimes with admiration. She narrowed her eyes, and a sly and mocking sneer flashed past her long and narrow eyes. The devouring flame fan in his hand quietly opened. Chi, who had received Yi Qing Luo's gaze, was ready to strike. Yi Qing Luo had never been one to sit still and wait for death. To let her take 3 moves from Fengling obediently? Hee. Not only would she not take 3 moves from Fengling obediently, she also wanted to save Windling unscathed. The first move was aimed at Fengling, and she wouldn't use her full strength to kill her directly in one move. In order to make the Imperial Palace's granny and Fengling let down their guard, Yi Qing Luo had forcefully held on and endured that move. Indeed, it was as Yi Qing Luo had expected.